Going on, you absolute freaking champions. How are you all tonight?
How you doing?
B Buddy's out.
Good.
We're out. What is going on?
What's up? We're just getting
where's all my screens? My screens have disappeared. These are. There we go. What's going on, everybody? Tonight we got an absolute beautiful special for y'all. Tonight I have 4 very like-minded people. 4. There's 5 of us. 4 very like-minded people. We're here tonight to talk to you about psychedelics and the human experience. Now, with the Australian government recently, in the last year or two, spending $15 million a year on research into psychedelics and psilocybins, mainly that research is going into Alzheimer's patients and depression patients and stuff like that. We are here to talk about and maybe break down some of the stigmas that come along with, I guess, people that take acid or have those experiences. Hey, MMK. What is cracking, girl? So, like that disclaimer said before the little intro, we do not condone the use, sale, or distribution of any of these substances that we are talking about tonight. All these people are here of their own accord and are willing to talk about all of the experiences that they've had and the research that they've done. And with that being said, let's get into this. Let's introduce everyone. All right, we'll just work around. Ari, give us a little bit of an introduction.
Hey, so I'm Ari. I'm a singer. I moved to Brisbane about a year and 9 months ago, and then met a bunch of these legends over the last year or so. I'm
Beautiful.
wondering, I guess, what else to introduce myself.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Perfect.
All right, Jace, give us the throw down, bro.
Sure, brother. I'm a drummer. I have a business. I really delve into the psychedelic realms and try to get the most of the research that I've been researching over the last decade or so. I have a tight-knit family with people like Johan and Ari. Actually, we're all musicians here.
That's I've gone right outside, but pressed right into the box that I enjoy.
About doing psychedelics and being a musical-minded person, so that's my piece. Still doing a lot of research on the psychoactive properties of each type of medicine. I call it medicine. And yeah.
Well, so did they when it was first made.
What's that?
Well, so did they when it was first made. They called it medicine.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just been a journey. I mean, just I do a lot of research before I take any of these substances, if you will. And it just the life transformation that comes with it is just it just needs to be spoken about, And so.
No, I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Once Jokan comes back, we'll come to him. But Jacko.
Here we go, Jack.
Jack.
Hey, y'all guys. I'm Jack. I'm from Brizzy, just like a couple of you guys are. I'm a muso. I play in a band called Tripsitter. I've been in a band called The Lighthearts as well, which is pretty cool as well. Kind of polar opposite to what I kind of play now. The music that I play is kind of like a psych rock with a lot of like protest and emotional depth to it, like about what the current climate of the planet is going on at the moment. Very midnight all, I would say, as well, that kind of vibe. Got a little bit of protest in there. My background in psychedelics is obviously have tried them before, have experienced them as well. I work with disabled, autistic, and people with PTSD and depression through music care. So it's very, very, very rewarding. But yeah, that's my background.
And Johan.
How you legends going? Sorry, we had some technical sound we were fixing there.
Nah, he
Hopefully I
said
sound a little more important.
it's all coming through beautiful, man. And Johan, give us your little intro.
Yeah, so I'm Johan Deneau, musician, songwriter, traveler. Um, Pretty much psychedelics have been around me my entire life. My mom was a hippie that went to Woodstock, and when I was a kid, she saw Jimi Hendrix
Love that.
Star Spangled Banner. Psychedelics came to me, I'll never forget, when I was a teenager, a little kid, and had Pokemon cards, and my friend's like, if you have LSD, the Pokemon cards come to life, and he traded me for the Charizard, and that's when I first started. I was a kid. Now, fast forward to life in my time, I've worked with Recovery Unplugged, where we use sweat lodge and natural modalities. But in that group, a lot of people I worked with, we discussed psychedelics. We've used it in certain situations. I've helped friends from post-war with post-traumatic stress come out using mushroom therapy. I've also personally overcome, I was suicidal and depressed at 19, and I overcame that through meditation, breath work, and also group-led setting psychedelic experiences. I firmly believe, in my humble opinion, at that time really opened my gateway. Since that time, I've sat with different tribes, done ayahuasca. I have also different prog medicine. I've sat with different traditional keepers, which has made me view this as a medicine that needs to be honored and respected. And also, I've always viewed that psychedelics are for the mind what the microscope is for science.
Beautiful, mate. Like
So,
100%, and this is the big thing that we're trying to break through here, is that what people need to understand is that this is nothing new. The use of this stuff is nothing new. So I guess I'll throw my experience in on this, is that I was a bit of a party animal back in the day, and I was just like, I just want to get fucked up and stuff like that. But in saying that, my experiences with acid and stuff like that being one of my favorite substances back in the day, was that it gave me experiences that are so unfoundable that even though I was so trashed, I remember nearly every single one of them. Every single one of them was such an experience, and such a life-altering experience at the time. Excuse me, was beautiful. So I don't really see a negative connotation aside from substance abuse, but that obviously comes with anything. But it's the use of it on the odd occasion for me was a very positive experience, even though in some cases I may have felt like I'd been going on a bad trip. But knowing what I know and the experiences that I've had, I've been able to talk myself out of it, and it's been a very good and positive experience every single time. So I really can't fault it, and it's just bang for your buck.
that's what I tell people, like, they spend it on stimulants or things, you're like,
I had to throw that dirty little comment in there.
5 minutes of a high. You do this, you can get hours of enjoyment and exploration if you do it right.
Well, and especially around the right people, especially if you have a guided experience, it can really take you on a positive journey. And in saying that, I'm just going to run a tiny little history intro for everyone that's watching today. So, in 1943, the great Albert Hofmann created LSD 25. Now, after that, and after yes, it is great bang for your buck. After accidentally spilling some on himself, realizing the psychoactive properties of LSD 25, 3 days later, ingested some intentionally, and a large dose of medical grade non-black market LSD, and officially took the first bike ride. This bike ride is now synonymous in the LSD and psychoactive industry as the bike ride that changed psychology in a sense. After that day, it was made regularly available to every single psychologist to use as rehabilitation and as a general thing. it has a 50% success rate back in the 40s through to the 60s for alcohol addiction. And it wasn't until Mr. Timothy Leary of Harvard University decided that he was going to become a, I guess in a sense, psychedelic psychonaut or a psychedelic evangelicist, and and said that no, this is going to change the world and everyone needs to take this. And with that, Mr. Richard Nixon signed the first drug bill that put psiloglobins and LSD into the grade category 1 drug. It made it a Schedule 1 substance and had no therapeutic properties whatsoever. Now we sit here after the 1970s in 2022, and the Australian government is now one of the front runners in starting to use this stuff for, like I said, Alzheimer's patients, using ketamine for other, like, I don't know if anyone's seen it, but I've recently seen a shitload of ads on Facebook for ketamine fucking nasal spray. And yeah, so realistically, for something that was man-made back in the 40s, but then we go further back, and then we start talking about 9,000 years ago, where mushrooms and ayahuasca and stuff like that have been used as tribal ceremonies and stuff like that. And obviously the compounds have been there for centuries, as in a sense. And how we now use them as Westerners, I guess in a sense, as an abuse, as what the government would call, but what realistically ancient tribes would call as a spiritual journey into becoming either a man or a woman, or becoming into an adult, that coming of age. And now we're here. But so that's just my little brief history, my little intro to sort of put everything into perspective of what we're going to talk about tonight. And realistically, if you're here for a balanced argument, no, you're not going to get a balanced argument, because we are all for it. If you're here for balance, it's not going to happen, because we're here to talk about the therapy.
There's anyone in the chat, though. If there's someone in the chat,
no, but please.
You're open for questions, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, open with questions, especially concerns. We're here to be a guiding light of people who have been there. Anyone that has any questions, concerns, we are here to answer those.
Bring it up, put it in the comments.
Absolutely.
And we can read it out.
100%.
So that's fine.
At the end of the day, everyone has their opinions, and my big issue is that the research is now, because of obviously that act that Richard Nixon signed back then, we are 50, 60 years behind the 8 ball.
Oh yeah, man.
And that's the bottom line. But to start off the night, to give everything a little bit of a structure, we're going to start off with Ari. Now, Ari has an absolutely amazing story when it comes down to the therapeutic use of LSD and psychedelics and stuff like that. So, Ari, please tell everyone your story.
Thank you. So basically, back a number of years ago, I developed an injury in my knees, and it then triggered a chronic pain condition where I felt pain all over my body. I was pretty much bedbound for a decent part of things, and the specialist told me that that was my life now, that if I was ever able to work again, that it would have to be something very different, and that I should just accept that. And that was the way things were. And pretty much their treatment of things was just to load me up on opioids and use that to treat the pain.
Now, just to be a bit more specific, just so we can really hit it home, what particular opioids did they have you on?
So they tried a range of them. It started off with just tramadol, Panadine Foote, and then it went to endone. It then progressed to me being put on morphine-derived pain patches, for which, no one agreed that it was a great thing, but they didn't see any other option at the time. And then I was also put on a drug that was the same chemical makeup as Rohypnol while in hospital, because they didn't know what else to do. And essentially they ended up even prescribing me anti-seizure medication to see if that would help with the pain. They also tried a range of different antidepressants and things to try and help stop the brain signals from going through and, telling me I was in pain. So pretty much I was basically a guinea pig for a number of doctors and specialists for a number of years.
So just to put that into a bit of perspective, is that what actually happened to you is that your body may have been fighting off some of the pain, but you had actually become so addicted to the medication that if you weren't taking it, it was making you sick.
Yeah. So it got to the point where I couldn't function without them. I couldn't function without them before I started on them. But then once I was put on opioids, I got horrifically ill if I didn't take regular doses of it. And it ended up having to be described to me that even though I didn't like feeling like a space cadet, and I didn't enjoy taking them, my body then became reliant on them to function. And I started having a whole series of adverse effects when I didn't regularly take them. And I struggled to understand that even though I didn't mentally want them, my body became addicted to them. And I felt trapped in this loop where no doctors, specialists, anyone could really help. They just basically told me, this is your life. You should apply to go on the disability pension. And in saying that, I don't mean, any negative connotations to anyone that is on that. It was just that for me, I didn't want to accept that that was my life. I wanted to, basically find some way that I could change things and get better.
Okay. Well, that's so what research did you actually do? And did you consult a physician when you had made that conscious decision that you were going to use psychoactives to reset your brain into getting off opioids?
Well, I had tried psilocybin when I was younger, just, in a just for fun basically, but then I hadn't had it for a number of years. I then had an experience where I did it with friends, and I found that it helped my pain levels to actually improve for about a month. But what really prompted me to go down the route of psychedelics was that I got to a breaking point when I was put on anti-seizure medication on top of, the morphine pain patches and all of the other opioids. And I ended up in hospital, passing out in a waiting room. And I woke up where I had lost the use of the right side of my body.
You are fucking kidding.
No, I basically I couldn't speak. I couldn't use the right side of my body. They explained that they couldn't figure out exactly what had happened, but they found that there had been a disconnect between the left side of my brain and the right side of my body. And basically I started having an unusual form of seizures to where they couldn't really properly pinpoint things, but my oxygen levels were dropping really low, and at one point dropped to low 60s. And basically I spent a bunch of time in the neurological and stroke ward of a hospital here in Adelaide, and then a rehab unit where they told me that my only way forward was to basically retrain my brain to reforge the neural connections with the left side of my brain to the right side of my body. And so when I came out of hospital, I thankfully found a doctor that put me on CBD oil, but it wasn't enough. I was still trying really hard to regain it. And I was just looking online in forums, across all areas of the internet to try and find if anyone else had found a solution and something that could help. I had always been told that acid eats your brain. So I had never done it before. But then
Such a
I
fucking
came
lie.
across-
I've
Yeah.
heard that many times, man.
Puts holes in your brain.
I don't know why they
Yeah.
called it acid in the first place, man.
This is propaganda. LSD
But
25.
for me, when I came out of hospital, I'd gone from, being in a wheelchair to then, working my way with rehab to being on a walker. And when I was out of hospital, still using a walker, trying to go through and, do the long way to reform these neural connections, I came across an article about how LSD helps to basically form these new neural pathways. And I found a forum post from someone that suffered the same conditions that I had, and they were saying that they had found that psilocybin and LSD was helpful for them. I felt that because I was already, I guess, at such a low, and
Well, what
the
are they
whole,
gonna do?
no specialists. Yeah, at one point there was a boardroom of 30 medical specialists trying to brainstorm a solution for me, and they couldn't come up with it. And so
Wouldn't come up with it.
They know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I
What can be
basically
our
learned-
alternative treatment? Nah.
What do those hippies know?
Thankfully, I had someone that suggested to me that I should go see a doctor that would help me to heal my gut, put me on CBD oil. But coming across this article and then this forum post made me go, okay, what do I have to lose at this point? I already don't have much functionality. I may as well give this a shot. So I didn't consult any medical professionals or anything, because I didn't know any medical professionals that I could actually even ask about it that, had experience with it. So my way of doing things was to basically speak with friends, speak with people, who knew a bit more about using it recreationally or, for their own personal use therapeutically, and to try to find out tips from them and basically, get help and recommendations from just other people that had done stuff themselves for the smartest way to do things.
Amazing.
So it's
Amazing.
It is a very, in saying that, okay, what people need to put into a little bit of perspective is that Ari has just said that she lost nearly all functionality in the right side of her body. And how long ago was that, Ari, if you don't mind me asking?
So that was it was June or July of 2019.
Okay, so in 3 years you managed to self-prescribe, which no one should do. Disclaimer, blah blah blah. And you have managed to get yourself back into your art of singing, get yourself back on stage, get yourself completely off the opioids that were prescribed to you.
Yeah.
And now you're living a very healthy, functional life.
Yeah. I actually just caught up with someone recently where they looked at me and they were like, "Who are you? The last time I saw you, you were this frail person who was completely different. How are you like you are now? It's like a different person."
Wow.
It's fantastic. Like,
Proof in the pudding.
and that's exactly right. Like, and this is why I think it was such a good idea to start with Aris Story first, is because it obviously goes to show that the limitations of what doctors can do within a legal perspective. And it's such
And also how much you don't understand as well.
Yeah, and it's such a good thing now that that the Australian government is putting that money into the funding now. And it should prompt people to ask for the alternative therapy.
Yeah.
In that
Yeah.
sense.
Well, Western medicine can only take you so far.
Exactly.
Well,
And I think I have personally been someone that was raised to trust your doctor and, trust what the doctor prescribes you.
Yeah.
And that landed
it's
me
curing
sicker
symptoms.
than ever.
It's curing
Yeah.
symptoms, it's curing the root of the problem.
They're taught to show and tell us what they've learned.
Well, it realistically, I think now, in this day and age, it comes down to legalities. I don't think it comes down to what you're taught and what this and that, because there's plenty of people in other countries and stuff like that. And like I said, in my little history intro, is that this was used by psychiatrists for nearly 20 years, and it is proven through papers from the 60s and stuff like that it does, especially with now the government talking about there not being enough psychiatrists. It does help with psychiatric treatment. It speeds up the whole process. Like, it's a fact. This has already been done. We don't need to the worst part about it is that we're rehashing on old work.
Yeah.
The only thing that we're not rehashing on as far as old work goes is when we start talking about DMT, which is what we're going to go to you, Jack, next about. And we'll get Jason to jump. We'll get Jason to jump at the same time. But Ari, yeah, go.
I had a thought come to mind that technically I think so. I did consult with friends that I made that were qualified psychologists, or basically people that had done more research into the area. Also, I was very lucky to have people come into my life that were a part of the Australian Psychedelics Society, who were happy to educate me on harm reduction and basically the smarter ways of doing things. But it was very much, I was very lucky to have people in my life that were willing to sit there with me in a safe space and basically, sit with me throughout the whole process and, talk me through a lot of it, guide me through as I was experiencing these things. Because the big thing that stuck out for me is the first time I tried LSD, I was terrified, but I'd been walking around with my walker and unable to do much. And the first time that I did it, I was then able to sit there and watch 2 documentaries back to back and have this focus that I hadn't been able to do. My brain was suddenly able to do all of these things that I hadn't been able to do for a long time. And I took the method for the most part of basically doing it in a safe environment where I did a lot of journaling. I basically put on a mindfold mask where I could keep my eyes open and just kind of then see whatever my brain was projecting out and use it to really go internally and work with what was brought up. And, I didn't always do it that way. And I was a bit silly in some ways of how I did it, because I was just trying to take it into my own hands and, and see what worked. So I wouldn't necessarily, encourage everyone to do that. But I found the way that was, the most effective for me and where I saw the most growth was when I did it in a safe environment with the right set and setting, the right people around me, when I was in the right mind frame for it, and using it as an introspective tool as well.
Oh.
Hey, Ari, have a question.
Yeah. Does the rest of the chat have a question? Go.
Well, I'd love to know. I'm sure everyone else in the comments or who's listening want to know as well. How long did it take for your treatment, your self-treatment, to show effect? Because I've heard many stories with how the brain reacts after any kind of psychedelic use, and they talk about it's very much like the snow globe effect, where you have a snow globe and all the particles at the bottom, right, in a certain spot. And basically when you use LSD, it's like flipping that upside down, shaking it, and then letting all the particles fall back in different spots. And it helps to move around move the brain around. Can make new connections in different ways. Was that your experience and how it worked for you? Was it a gradual results, or was it very almost like instantaneous over a short period of time?
Great question.
That is really good.
So, yeah, you framed that well. So some of it was instant. With some of it, I just saw this result straight away. What was interesting was it was kind of a gradual in a way that it took a while for me to, I guess, come off of each medicine because I was on so many different opioids. It was a bit of a process. It was when I also got into meditation, basically, it was also healing my gut and, getting more CBD oil into my system. But what I found was I was regularly dosing, sometimes I was doing it once a week, and that was when I was seeing the most drastic improvements, because it was kind of, it was seen a lot more. And for example, I would go to a friend's house for a few nights, and I would come back home, and my mum and step would look at me and go, "Oh my goodness, like what is different about you? Like you're walking better. You're, like everything about you is different. You're able to function more." And this is so bizarre because, like suddenly you're able to do all of these things, but then it would only kind of have an effect, mostly so for about a week. I found the effects, especially with psilocybin, produced me with about a month where my chronic pain was better.
It's because your body's meant to have it. It's natural.
Yeah, and then with the LSD, it was probably, I guess, a bit more of a strong effect for a few weeks. And then I found that after a month, if I hadn't had any for about a month, that I got less pain relief. But the improvement with the new neural pathways forming, it was like once I did it, basically, I just kept improving more and more. And it was kind of like the more I did it over time, the more improvement I saw. And it was only in probably about April of 2020, when the COVID lockdown happened here in Adelaide, that I couldn't get my script for my morphine-derived pain patches, and I started to go into the full withdrawal. And that's when I decided, like, screw it, I'm coming off of these too. And it was a really rocky time, because, I was fighting off all of these withdrawal effects and everything. So I was basically trying to kind of keep a track of, the improvements amongst then these withdrawal symptoms. But it was, by the time it was maybe August of 2020 was when I had seen enough improvement, and it had been about a year of regularly dosing, and it was like I was a different person.
What's
and
what's regular dosing?
Basically every week or second week.
Okay, so it wasn't like you were taking stuff every single day. It was once a week.
Nope.
Are you serious?
Nope. Yeah, I would.
Because when we were talking before, I was assuming when you were like, I was just doing this myself. It was just like, okay, every day, bang, 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 bang. Like I'm just gonna. That to me is microdosing.
Oh yeah, but you're doing
Yeah.
You're doing like you said, like once a week. So you're doing it once a week. You're doing like you're doing small doses, like
Was it like what was it like one or drop or like?
You having like 100 UG?
I was starting off with having 100 UG, but I found that because of the meds that I was on, it was like there was a barricade where I would have less effect than what it would be on a normal person. And so I found that if I took 200 UG, it gave me more of an effect that probably what 100 UG would have on a typical person.
But the fact that you were doing that once a week just goes to show that it can obviously really be controlled in a medical sense, where you could go and see a psychiatrist or go and see a psychologist once a week, get that prescribed to you, and make sure that trip or whatever it is at the time is guided every single time for anyone that may not be able to handle it as well as other people. And they can still, like, it just obviously, it's not something that you have to do fucking every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I found that microdosing didn't have the same effect, but I found that basically just regularly having larger doses did. And for perspective, in the week leading up to my 25th birthday in September of 2019, I was still using a walker and, still on a number of opioids. And then it was September of 2020. At the end of that month was when I came up to Brisbane. And basically I was well enough to, to then go interstate. And that's when I moved to Brisbane and basically, was trying to start my life fresh as a healthy person, being dependent and, like living on my own, after, being so sick that I had been, bedbound for the most part, or just loading up on opioids to even try and work like maybe once a week.
Wow.
So it was about a year of doing all of that. And it was, it was probably only more so early 2020 that I started doing those regular doses. So yeah, it was like some improvements straight away, but then collectively, it was an overall massive mega improvement. And, I still had a number of things that I was tackling when I first moved to Brisbane, in, trying to get my health, completely kind of perfect, or at least at a much better point. But it was this massive difference to where I've been going around in a wheelchair or a walker, or then, struggling, to then being able to move, being, well enough to move into state.
Wow, amazing. Hey, Ari, with your, if you don't mind me asking, I have some more questions. It's like the best.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, I'm so open to it.
I would love to know how, like, you go now with. Do you still take your doses on a weekly to keep up with like everything keeping right with your synapses in your brain and anything like that, or is it now you're completely free of everything?
Well. Yeah, again, great question, but no, I don't regularly take them anymore. I do.
How much more proof do you want?
The medical world goes, oh no!
Yeah, I had.
That's a hallelujah moment.
Yeah.
I got to a point where, honestly, I had started to, when I kind of tried to, use them more regularly, I kind of felt like it was, it started to kick my butt a bit because I didn't have the need for it. Realistically, my pain levels were just under control. My neurological functioning was a million times better, and I was able to do all of these things I hadn't done in the past. And so I actually had a few times where it was a bad trip. And I went, you know what, I wasn't smart in the, I guess I didn't do it in, like the right set and setting and everything. But I had this kind of, yeah.
At the end of the day, it's still black market. Like, and that's the problem, because hey, look, I got no issue. Look, at the end of the day,
the wild place.
Look, and this is what I was talking about with Ari before. Can you imagine the impact and probably the amount of time it would have taken if it was a legalized thing that could have been looked at, as opposed to here's what my constraints are as a doctor. And realistically, look, I do feel bad for medical practitioners that do think outside the box, because they know what's out there and they can't.
They are there.
They are there. But and this is why I was so excited when the Australian government did start looking at sotaglobins as stuff to use on Alzheimer's patients. Man, Alzheimer's is fucking disgusting.
It is.
Like, dude, and this isn't a shit take on anyone with Alzheimer's. This is like, dude, I feel bad for anyone, A, that has it, and B, that has to have someone going through it. Like, if you could ease someone's pain by giving them a magic, and look, you want to throw the stigma on top of it. In all honesty, you want to throw the stigma on top of it. We'll call it for what it is. If you're going to make an Alzheimer's patient more comfortable by giving them magic mushrooms, and the only reason why they're called magic mushrooms is because of the media and the stigma that they give on them. If they gave them some cool name like fucking Super Mushroom 9 or something like that, you know what I mean? They'd be scribing it left, right, and centre.
Mario.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's such an unfortunate thing. It's such an unfortunate thing that we have to go through, like psychiatrists. All you have to do is go on YouTube and type in LSD and stuff, and you will see some very smart individuals that have doctorates and masters and doctorates and all this cool stuff, and they know
Terrence
what's up.
McKenna's a good one as well, man.
Yeah, and
Pioneer, man.
He's a pioneer, man.
yeah, like this is, like I said, Timothy Leary, what he did, and I'm just giving a little bit of, hopefully I'm quoting this properly, is that give this to all the people and they will not work for your corporations. They will not bend to your will. And it was not long after that Richard Nixon signed that FDA form that said that you can't use it anymore. And feed him mushroom soup. Yep. That's what it takes to help chronic issues. Hold on, my experience too. So Tim Foote has also experienced microdosing at least every 2 weeks with LSD.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So there's someone in the chat that
that's a wise move. Every 2 weeks is a good time to integrate between keys integration.
Integration is a big key part of the whole process of diving into this psychedelic space.
And exactly
I think
right.
What I found as well was when I didn't give myself that time to have the integration too. It was almost like I was cheapening the experience.
Yeah.
And to expand a bit more on what I was saying before, Jack, I found that when, once I'd kind of experienced all I could experience at that time with LSD and psilocybin, I felt that it wasn't necessary anymore, and there wasn't a need for me to regularly take it. It's not that I don't enjoy it now if I do have it, but I just don't feel a strong need to. It's helped to save
in the
my
medicine.
life.
It's like, taking Nurofen or Panadol when you don't have a headache. It doesn't really have an effect, or might even have a negative effect in that way, and that's like, to me, like that. Your whole story is just blows my mind, and I'm sure anyone that's listening is also going, like, if they have any stigma against it or any kind of bad annotations against it, they can be like, oh wow, there's a little bit of proof in the pudding there. If it's just one story, you can look at now Aris Story and go, okay, maybe it actually might have some backing behind it, and might actually work possibly for a lot of things.
Well, at the end of the day, with the internet the way it is now, anyone looking up therapeutic ways of healing their conditions will find someone that says something about it, doing it, and hopefully this right here is someone that has gone through what Ari's gone through. Will use it, and even like Tim Foote here in the chat, he's used it for PTSD, and it's also amazing pain levels.
Do you mind if I'll
see if I can share it.
Seen a physical like a big change since microdosing? Do you feel like it's working or helping you dig deeper inside, like go internally with the trauma?
Yeah,
I think
Tim.
While we're waiting for Tim's answer to come through, I'll add that I also was struggling a lot with PTSD and with the mental health effects of, from trauma, but also just from, having low functionality and, high pain levels. And I had tried so many different types of therapy. I had some really hard points, but then when I started dosing, I found that I was able to work through issues that I hadn't been able to solve through any other type of therapy. And I suddenly had this really profound sense of peace with, different traumatic events that had happened to me that I hadn't been able to achieve through anything else. And, it didn't fix everything, but it brought me this level of healing that I hadn't been able to achieve before, and just this strong sense of acceptance for, my past and my background. And that wasn't straight away, but that was after a significant time of taking these doses. I was then able to achieve that, and I felt free from things that had kept me trapped my whole life.
It does make you come to terms with a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
The bad trips, they say, your bad trips are always
no such thing. It's just a learning experience.
Yeah, not such a thing. You're going internally, and you might not be ready to look at those toxic traits or personality traits you have about yourself.
They're demons. Ooh. Just call them for what they are. They're demons, man.
I don't accept that. I'm like that. Oh, no. Don't want to look at that right now. Not ready. And that's okay. That's all right. That's all right. And they say, like...
Go, Johan.
Just to speak, because we're talking about PTSD and bad trips. So I firmly believe that, like Ari, you were really powerful. You did your research, and you stepped into it with kind of what they say, the right set and setting. The reason I say this is back, it was 4 years ago, I have a close friend in Florida. He was over in Iraq and Afghanistan during the war. He saw his friends killed before him. Like, he was going through the gauntlet on so many medications, so many pills, going through so many dark elements. And his brother said mushroom therapy. And I've been a person where I approach everything with a lot of respect. And when it came to that opportunity and I was with him, I was really grateful to sit with him because, like you said, it could have been a really bad trip. A lot came out from the darkness, seeing the darkness of the thoughts he had. And I give so much respect. I'm not going to use the same to respect his privacy because it's changed his whole life. But after that session, we did 3 sessions. I talked to him through, and instead of them being devils, they became angels. He went from being on suicide watch, going through a lot of hell, to seeing that he couldn't save his brothers, but his brothers were there. He finished his life and became a nurse. He's been a nurse working in hospitals. He doesn't do any hallucinogens, doesn't even drink. He's the most happy, positive person you'll ever meet in his life. And every time I talk to him, he just smiles and he cries and thanks me. And I tell him, don't even dare thank me. I'm honoring you. You just gave me the opportunity to sit with you as a brother and a friend and to remind you you're not alone and to work through your demons, because psychedelics is just a space for you to put yourself under a microscope, but be with the right people in space so you can be held and then you can be guided. And I'm bringing it up because, there's this organization in the US, Wounded Warriors, and multiple organizations. And I firmly believe that anybody who goes through hell or goes through war needs to be treated in a space where they are loved and held. And when it comes to psychedelics, there's all of us, we have our own journey, all 4 of us here, and most of us around the world. But that is one of the elements that I give so much gratitude to any form of psychedelics, to allow people to go to the dark places to find the light and to come back and to have new purpose in life, like you have, Ari. Like my friend was like, it sounds like Tim has, like a lot of people have. So cheers to all those people doing the work, because whether it's breath work, psychedelics, whatever your form of medicine is, doing the work is how you get back to you.
It's such a good thing you've put there, Tim. It ultimately forced me to work through the trauma. And that state, that first line right there is such a big thing, especially if you're using psychedelics as a mental health thing. I know I didn't intend to use them as a mental health thing, but they ended up helping me as a mental health thing. Most trips helped me unlock my subconscious to process it. Was very painful, but I had good support going through it. And that, and man, this is what we're talking about, where it 100% it should be guided.
Yeah.
If anyone, do not take acid off shit people. That is, if there's seriously, like at the end of the day, these drugs, and like this is, I'll talk about it a bit later on after we talk to Jack next, is that it's a very powerful thing, and the ability of what it can do to the mind is not a bad thing, but in the wrong hands, it can be a very bad thing. Yeah. Okay, Jack. Now we were talking a little bit, and I want Jace to jump in when he can on this one too.
Yeah, I'd love to, Joe.
So the new big hit thing, you know, Joe Rogan fucking goes on about it all the time. DMT. DMT. Now I've been fortunate enough to try DMT before, but I've never broken through.
Nice, bro. You didn't break through.
Hey Ivan, what's going on, bro?
It's a very interesting. You know, it's such a massive topic. I'm sure Jason agrees as well, and everyone agrees here as well with it as well. It's such a massive topic, and it's very hidden.
It is, but let's be straight with everyone. It's called the dream drug. It's because it's what your body it's what your body produces when you dream. Your body naturally produces DMT, the sleep drug, the dream drug, whatever you want to call it. Now, for anyone out there that doesn't know, DMT is in a lot of plants. Now, one plant that it is very high in Australia is the wattle, is what I found out doing a little bit of my research. So the wattle plant is the wattle bark, I think. It's very high in DMT. How you extract it, I don't know, and we wouldn't tell you here anyway. We're not about that.
YouTube that.
You guys may know, but we're not. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Right now, it's a secret from what I was in Central Alice Springs, and from what I can understand and see, it's very sacred here for Dreamtime.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's the same like in the States, peyote with cactus.
Just see every.
It kind of seeks you at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's like when you're with the right setting, you've got to have traditional killers to experience it correctly.
Oh, there you go. It's supposedly it's what you release. It's what your body releases when you die as well. As Ivan has told me. Okay. So
that's why people are serial killers.
let's go, Jacko. What do you got for us, buddy?
All right. So the study I was looking at, I wanted to go through a study today, just because I want to get a little bit scientific. So anyone who's in the chat who was a little bit, they're just talking about psychoactives. I'm not really into it. There's no proof behind it, all that kind of stuff. And basically, I wanted to show people how it should be, and people should learn about it, especially people who are in near-death care, or anything in any kind of traumatic scenario, or end of life scenario, anything like that. Well, the study that I was looking at, it was relating DMT experiences to NDEs, and NDEs are just called called near-death experiences.
So I've pulled up a little page here.
Yep.
So this is the first page you sent me. So we got some numbers, we got some cool numbers and stuff like that, because we're doing research here, people.
Doing research. So this one here we're looking at the placebo effect. So basically, when you're taking nothing, you've taken nothing. So it's just to show you that what near-death experiences feel like. So this was their scale rating. All right. So they did it out of 7, I'm pretty sure. What they were doing is they were saying, okay, let's have a look. Let's see if we can, talk about what are the different aspects of a near-death experience. So as you go down the left-hand side, you can see, during your near-death experience, was there, an unearthly environment, peace, pleasantness, heightened senses, harmony, unity. Something that's very cool, apparently, in near-death experiences. This is just a placebo, so it's obviously going to be quite low. There obviously is, with the magical...
placebo pill.
The placebo pill is always very strong in some ways. There was actually one of the people...
well, it's that feelings of joy. It's the feelings of joy. Yeah. The two that stand out to me, I don't know if people can see me circling them. It's the feelings of joy and the peace and pleasantness that seem to be very high, and the life review. Which seem to be which seem to sort of factor into the 7 stages of grief when you. Yeah. So I don't know if that could have an effect on it.
I would definitely say it would. I'm not a professional. I'm not a scientist, so take everything we say with a grain of salt, and take everything we say here with a grain of salt as well.
You got numbers.
But definitely, facts are very cool to look at, especially when they're studying psychoactive stuff like this. If you jump to the next image, I'm pretty sure it's the DMT study.
Is that the one there? Mystical experience, ego disillusion inventory.
Yeah, we can have a look at that one. I think there was another one as well. It was like a very similar graph that we were looking. Yeah, this one's great.
There it is. Is that the near
Oh, that's a pretty one. I like that one.
That one?
Yeah, this is brilliant. This was a good one too. They're both really good. We'll jump on this one. This is a good one. So basically, this is, as you can probably read, it's just going through the questions that they asked the people who had near-death experiences and the people who took DMT as well, and trying to correlate differences between them and see how they felt. And you have these different questions for cognitive subscales, affective subscales, paranormal subscales, and transcendental subscales. Love that word, transcendental. And just if you just have a read through some of those questions that they ask, and you can see the scale mean scores on the right hand side, versus each other, and it's so close. It's like there is obviously in some parts the NDEs are higher, and then sometimes the DMT is higher as well, and it's amazing to see. It's amazing to see.
I think
kind of shows you.
I think one that's a standout here is the time speed up, or it's the very first line here. It's the time speed up or time slow down. That seems to be a massive, it's almost double nearly everything that was presented. But in saying that, it does slow down.
If we can include links to this, Jack, in the YouTube afterwards.
Yeah, I'll definitely check on the chat.
Just not just anybody watching if it's a little hard to read, so that way they can see it later.
No, 100%. Everything will be added. Everything will be added in after.
Obviously, if anyone has any questions as well in the chat, if they need any, they want me to talk about something,
okay,
to talk about it as well.
So here's my thing. Here's my thing with the whole DMT deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's the amount that you have to ingest to actually break through and have the proper experience.
The 3-tug rule, man.
Ooh, okay, so just to get okay, so I'll be the dirty Westy trash median. Do you know what I mean? So I'll tell you how we use it as little So what we used to do, what used to happen back in the day, it was like you pack a bong and you just sprinkle a shitload of DMT on top of the bong.
Yeah.
And just crunch that bad boy like it was fucking nothing. Now, obviously that wasn't enough, because when I've seen documentaries, doing research into this, the amount you actually need to ingest, because obviously DMT is natural and you can't really overdose from it, the amount I guess you need to ingest to break through properly is something different. When I did have it, I think I did have some sort of out-of-body experience.
You'll have that on one toke, man.
Yeah. But you never get the same experience. It's the weirdest thing where you never get the same experience again.
And it also depends on the person. And,
true.
And the container that you create, that's a big element to it, is the space that you create, like the ceremonial escapes that you create.
You're exactly right, Jason. It's been a ceremonial drink, drug, flower, pedal, drink, mushroom.
It's in everything.
For example, we can just talk about ayahuasca real quick. Ayahuasca is somehow, some magical way, these magical leaders of their tribe were like, okay, this plant and this plant together, one's an enzyme inhibitor and one is packed full of DMT. Somehow they knew that.
Actually, just say you're adding your 100% right, Jack. So when I saw the traditional keepers, it said that the sky people came down. And,
Yes.
and a lot of what they were saying is what happened is they were sick. It's similar to the peyote story. Native American North and South both are similar, where there was a shaman and he was dealing with sickness and illness with his community, and saying that they were guided and the plants sang to them.
Yeah,
I heard
this story as well.
Say ayahuasca and these traditional songs. So keep going, Jack. Just adding to what you're saying.
Yeah, no, amazing. I totally agree. Freaking, like the stories behind it are some of the most beautiful things you'll ever hear. Especially about ayahuasca or ceremonial drink that includes DMT in it. They really respected it because they knew the power of it. And you know, like you can think about the lotus in ancient Egypt.
The blue lotus flower. Yeah, man. I actually keep some of that at home.
The priests would smoke or ingest.
What's up, baby?
What's up, baby?
Which would let them talk to the gods, or let the pharaohs talk to the gods and commune with the gods and see the possible futures, or get them ready for the afterlife, which I found is an absolute big correlation to the near-death experiences there, you know. And if anyone doesn't understand what DMT experience is like, if you get this whole near-death experience vibe, it's very similar. I know it sounds extremely scary. It's like, oh my god, this person nearly died taking it. Oh my god, no.
Yeah, but it's the type of
anyone that's before will tell you that it's the most beautiful experience you've ever experienced. You know, it's something that changes you for the better. You come back a better person. Yeah. You come back and go, wow. Okay, I can change.
Almost like you're being reborn again.
Well, it's funny because the other day I was sitting around, I was flicking through YouTube, the shorts, and I think it was Wednesday before we were doing today, and it came up with a short, and it had Joe Rogan, atheist changes his mind after doing DMT.
Right.
I've got a few friends that are atheists.
Yeah, well, I'm wholeheartedly a part of it because my experiences, I was a solid fucking atheist, and my experiences with drugs and stuff like that is that I don't. And the weirdest thing is, it's like I don't think it's like a organized thing. I think it's just around us. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's like a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddha or, you know, like anything like that. I think that's what they've turned it into.
Yeah.
But I think...
I had this grade 9 teacher, I'll just really interject here. It's a really cool depiction. I don't know if she's listening. I won't tell her name, she might get, fired from Catholic school. Who knows? But she was... I went to Catholic school, and I remember in grade 9, she was teaching us... I think it was just like a home ec class or a drama class. I remember her saying, "Hey, someone asked a question about different religions and why is Catholic the one? Because that's what we were taught."
I was Roman Catholic, so I'm following you.
Yeah, and what on the board was this beautiful long river, right, and then a whole bunch of wells that connected to this one big river. Mm-hmm. And basically, what she did was she wrote every religion on every well, on each individual well. All these different wells dipping into the same river, coming up and being called a different thing, but it is the same.
Different experience.
It's how you take it. And it should never be religion should never be forced on anybody. Ever. It should never hurt anybody because it's supposed to be a good thing. It's supposed to help people, and it's a very beautiful thing. It's a very beautiful thing that. DMT has had many studies done on it, and there's a lot of correlations between near-death experiences and the amount of experiences that do talk about this place that you go to called the waiting room, which is extremely beautiful. I know that sounds extremely scary to a lot of people who've never done it before, where it's just darkness, and that sounds very scary to a lot of people. But with people's experiences through DMT, they talk about how beautiful and calming that place is, and how at peace they are with everything. And from there, they have ego dissolution and becoming one with, you would even say, the universe that we are.
Source energy. Yeah.
How would you say
Yeah.
would be the
Well, I would say,
Oh, sorry, go,
sorry to
Johan.
jump there, but that's all good. The only reason I wanted to add is just with Jack, you opened something up which is really beautiful, and you were talking about with your background, and that's the well with the different religions. Now, just adding to that, because you hit on Egypt, and I've been somebody where I'm an analytical person. Like, I've gone to school, I've been educated, I've done research, and when I dived into spirituality, being a Roman Catholic previously, turned Buddhist, turned multiple religions, when I did my research, what I found is that if you look at it from the history of when the Greeks and when the Muslims and different cultures had it, it was really coming down from the Hermetic order, which really came down from when the Egyptians had it. And then when you look in the Egyptian, like you were speaking, what I love is their culture, when you were called a dreamer, that was the highest form of respect. And the Book of the Dead, and these books were, the world of knowledge was hidden in the third eye. So if you ever look at, you ever see Egyptians, they have the big heads, the big hats? So if you do research, it's proven that that was actually viewed as your third eye. That's the same shape as your pineal gland. So in the time of the Egyptians, what happened is when you would go deep in the lotus flower, and when you get the tree of wisdom, aka whether you want to say connecting spirit, aliens, whatever floats your boat. The key finding there was that they respected someone that was able to dive deep into their psyche and come out and bring something to society.
100%. And D teams have an extremely similar experience where, you go there and you take so much in. You absorb everything that you feel, if I can even say feel, that you experience.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
So
you feel like a sponge. It's probably the best thing I can say is throwing a giant sponge.
Throw a different perspective on here. What aside, I guess, last final life experiences would a conscious or therapeutic application of DMT be? Because that's one thing that gets me is that aside from trying to show people that God exists, what is an actual application for DMT? Because we can talk about the whole thought process of Moses walking up to that burning bush and that bush being so high in DMT that he's ingested all that GMT that he actually broke through, has gone and been bred. Hypothetically, Moses was standing around this burning bush, ingested so much DMT that he broke through, saw the gods, and the gods essentially gave him the 10 commandments of what people should live roughly their life by in order not to piss too many people off. Realistically, do you know what I mean? Like, realistically, if we're going to break it down into like a real layman's fucking term, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah,
like as far as saying like LSD really has that therapeutic notion in the fact that it can get you off alcohol, it can get you off opioids. What therapeutic aside breaking through and realizing that you're not as big as what you actually are, what therapeutic
everything all inclusive. That's the cool thing about DMT is it's been used for especially, obviously not in Australia yet, but in places all overseas. You can do ayahuasca ceremonies, you can do DMT ceremonies in many parts of the world, or even in places that you're not supposed to do it. But the whole idea is that it helps with everything. It's been proven that it helps everything. It doesn't have to be a near-death experience. That's just the study that we're talking about. It can be for alcoholism. It can be for PTSD. It can be from depression. It can be for trauma or loss of a loved one. And you're having trouble moving on. You can't. You want to connect to possibly them. You want to even try and talk to something that kind of just gives you a peace of mind of there is, trust me, a lot more than this.
A connection sounds like in a weird sense, it sounds like DMT is like the connection to the Matrix.
Yes,
I would
that's
say it like that if you were
perfect
speaking in a
analogy.
sci-fi term, I guess, in a way.
Like in a
It's very
layman's term, in a very, like I said, like I'm here, like you guys have done a lot of research. I'm going to come in later and I'm going to talk about my stuff, but I'm going to come in here like as a real dummy and get you to explain yourselves to everyone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So like,
Again, I'm going to reiterate, if anyone in the comments,
so
if we're
like
not explaining it enough, let us know.
So
So
Jason, you done
I'm
some.
about to take over just real quick, 1 second. One thing we haven't talked about is experience. DMT is like 10 or 15 minutes. Like when
I've got
very
5.
yeah, like whereas LSD can be up to 5 to 6 hours.
12.
A lot of other things can be very long.
Yeah,
You are underselling everything, Johan.
DMT is useful for someone just wants a quick in and out.
Yeah.
So essentially, what Johan just said there is that DMT can be used for very quick experiences, like bang, five.
Oh, we're just talking about DMT right now.
It doesn't feel like a quick experience. You never feel like you're there for 15 minutes.
No, but that's what the whole point about astroplaning is, where you actually disconnect from your body into that outer realm. It's almost like when they talk about, when they talk about in movies, whether in space, where it's like if you're on this planet, 5 minutes is like 10 hours up here. Do you know, it's like light years, and you actually. In the weirdest sense of a word, when you take DMT, you move light years away from your body. So that 5 minutes or 15 minutes that you get from said DMT hit, what you experience in your brain might be the equivalent of 30 minutes. In real world time, it's 15 minutes, but you actually disconnect so far from your body that it's almost like you're in another realm, where 15 minutes in your actual body will take 30 minutes in this other realm, if that makes sense.
It's very similar in the study as well. We talk about it very quickly as well. They say, hey, how was your time, your figure of time? And more people say that time dissolved. It didn't exist. It didn't. It had no concept of time. And then when people came out of this, their dosage, after it had worn off, after like 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever there was, for them to come back, they would asking these questions and going, how long do you think you were gone for? And that would range sometimes. Like there was people who said, I felt like I was gone for months.
Wow.
Weeks.
Months.
Months.
People it just depends. It really just depends. But it never feels like it's not. Time doesn't. They describe it as time not existing.
Yeah, you just hit the nail on the head, Johan. You broke the space-time continuum where your body separates to an extent where you're circling this quick and your body, like your space is circling.
Past, present, future.
Yeah. And
space-time continuum.
That's exactly right, Ivan. Interstellar, exactly what I'm talking about. Have you guys seen that movie?
That new film as well, if you guys haven't seen it.
I love Interstellar. That's one of my favorite fucking movies of all time.
So, Jason, what's your sort of experience?
Well, I wanted to add something on it's still on the DMT subject.
Yeah, please, hit it.
Has DMT in it, right? But it's such a longer experience, so you can really digest through the process. When you smoke DMT, you kind of get blasted into this hyperbolic space-time continuum where time and space don't really exist. But when you come out of it, you get back to the human construct. You're like, wow, I went somewhere where there was no time and space, and I got all this light language and just blasted with this information. The thing is with ayahuasca and a lot of these other plant medicines is you can kind of digest it in a couple hours, like maybe 6 to 8 hours. So you kind of you're on the ride, but you're still in this timeless hyperbolic space. But you can digest it easier with the spirit of the plant. That makes sense.
So what you're saying there is that if you basically have an acceptance of what you're about to go through, like essentially what you will like it sounds like what you're saying there is that if you actually take the conscious decision of that you've ingested something and that you're going for this fucking big ride. Because that is the one thing that I've found with psychedelics. It's you don't fight psychedelics. You
gotta let go.
like no you
Otherwise it'll be very uncomfortable.
you accept your path, like, and this is why I tell anyone that, like, if you take acid, it is 12 hours of your life you are never getting back. It is as simple, like, that is every single one of my experiences with psychedelics is just 12 hours of your life you never get back. It's just 12 hours for some reason. And
that's a pretty magical 12 hours.
It is. It's a life-changing 12 hours. But what is I guess the ratio of DMT, like, so, because I've never, like, two things I've never tried in my life, mushrooms and peyote. And I'd really like to, yeah, I've never had the opportunity.
Mushrooms are everywhere here in Australia.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just too scared. I'm too scared. I don't want to grab the wrong one and kill myself. Like, I don't think my wife would be very, very fucking capus mente with that.
It is important to make sure you've identified the right one.
Yeah, and don't go watch videos on YouTube, because I've watched plenty, and your colour's going to be different on the TV to when you get out there and whatever you're watching it on. Go.
Sorry to cut you out there, but disclaimer: I tell everybody is like, if you see mushrooms on the ground and you see mushrooms growing, if you've never eaten mushrooms, if you've never done it, don't. A lot of times, especially if they're near roads, if they're near places, or they're growing on woods, or like pieces of timber or trees, the best advice I can give is, if you know anybody in your circle that has, done it and has access to it, it's safe if you can get somebody that grows it, somebody's a property and they know it. Right now we live in an age where a lot of people are growing it for multiple mental and physical and emotional things, and it is accessible, but again, don't just pick it off the ground. Like you did really well there, my dear buddy Brandon, and not just going there and eating it randomly, because that is
especially in Australia, you got to be very careful. There's especially if you're picking the mushrooms, the psychedelic mushrooms in Australia, there's a very similar breed.
The gold tops. There's gold tops that look exactly like other gold tops.
Same places. So you have to be extremely careful. So anyone who is listening, make sure if you are going to do it,
go
safely,
out with someone that's a professional.
You're going to pick and you're going to research it thoroughly, and you're going
to somebody that's experienced with you.
Because realistically, like, I know there's a place up the road from me, like, I'm in the Camden area, and there's a mushroom growing place up the road from me. I'm sure if I went up to them and just went, show me what not to pick. Do you know, just don't do it. Just don't go mucking around with fucking mushrooms.
I think it's better to have somebody, like, next time you pick, can I figure out an arrangement where, like, I can please join you? Because if you go and pick it by yourself and eat it by yourself, that's a recipe for putting yourself in a situation that you're not prepared for. And if you have access to somebody who does and can get it, that's the best person to say, hey, please, can you please be a trip sitter?
Yeah.
And
you make sure they've taken those mushrooms first. If they're like, here, take this mushroom, and you're like, here, you eat it first, and they're like, no, I'm not going to eat that, you probably shouldn't take it.
Yeah.
Always be
There's
safe.
even online forums of people who are happy to, to help you out as well. I'm not saying trust everything on the internet, but if you have no other option, at least, reaching out to other people online that have more of an idea than you is smarter than taking the risk.
100%.
There are other factors like wood lovers paralysis, and you wouldn't want to take any poisonous mushrooms.
Especially in Australia, just be really careful. Like I said, I'm going to say it again. There's a very similar mushroom that looks exactly the same places that the psychoactive ones do. So just be very, very careful. They look very similar.
And just real quick, just while we're talking mushrooms, there are multiple different strains. One thing, if we're gonna do it, I recommend there's button mushrooms, and there's, well, not button mushrooms, the ones we eat. Philosopher's stones, which are non-psychoactive. They're a lot more physical.
They make you strong.
The blue meanies are the ones that are very psychoactive.
Blue meanies.
They're in between. If you're ordering a steak,
Cow shit.
mushrooms are very big. Golden Liberty caps over there as well. There's multiple different types. There is MAPS, which is an organization which looks into different forms of it. Look and research there. There's also Aruit. It is a free source, and they go through all different types. So specifically, if you don't have anybody like Ari put it, we're going to put some links in there if you're interested, just to do your own research to find, just similar to like how alcohol affects all of us differently. Tequila, each different types affects it differently. Each mushroom will affect it differently. So the best thing is to know your exact want and needs, and to know which one you think will fill that, and the right person to supply that.
Yeah. That is such good advice, Johan.
We got someone here in the chat, Sam H. Smith.
Yeah, Sam H. Smith's so easy to pick. They turn purple. The other gold, tops don't. Oh, there you go.
I would say it's a bit more of a blue, at least in South Australia.
That's the small side of it.
So if you're colourblind like me, don't go picking mushrooms. So
I am curious.
No, go, Ari.
I was just going to ask Jack, what was the thing that stuck out to you the most when you were doing this research? Was there anything that you came across that you didn't know, especially when it came to NDEs? Or
this was definitely something that I've like done heaps of research on before, and I've been looking at it. But I was like trying to bring up something that there was actual logical facts behind it. I could spit information all day here, and people can then say back to you in the comments and go, "Hey, yeah, but it's just what you found on the internet, and like everything on the internet is true." That's very, very true. 100%. A lot of stuff on the internet is not true. When you're looking at science and stuff like that, when people have done hours and hours of research, and they've done the proper methods, and they've written this amazing study about linking something like DMT to near-death experiences and how so similar they are, it really brings to the forefront that, okay, there is something here about maybe even the meaning of life or what happens after that maybe we should be diving deeper into. Because if there's something there that goes, hey, when I nearly died, I saw this. This is what I experienced. And it was very similar to someone who said, hey, I had a near-death experience, and I did this study, and I also tried DMT, and yeah, it was extremely similar. It was almost identical. There was moments where I felt it was a very similar experience. And that, to me, is a massive proof that, like I said, that there could possibly be, hey, it might just be the drugs in our brain. There might not be nothing afterwards. But it's something to be looking at. And it's like we were talking about before, where Australia has now got this funding to do this research. It could be a very beautiful thing for people who are struggling with end-of-life problems. And I could not imagine any better thing for anyone who is going through a end-of-life experience where they've got nothing else to go to. They're just either, on pain meds, and that's it. That's all they have.
Essentially is opioids.
And opioids, horrible, anxiety of death, fear of death, and based on the experiences of near-death experiences and DMT experiences, they're so similar in the loss of fear of death, acceptance of life, and how beautiful it is, celebration, and how death is not something to be feared, but to be excited about. It's something beautiful that is just this the next chapter of the book. It's not like this the end of the book, and the book is closed, and it will never ever be opened again for 1,000,000 years, and never ever again. It's going to be gone forever. It's this next beautiful moment. Maybe put it to you're a caterpillar into a cocoon, and that might feel like the end because it's all closed up around you. and it's dark.
It's just a transition.
And then all of a sudden, bam, you're this new biological entity somewhere else. Blah blah blah. Whatever you.
So the whole reincarnation concept.
Well, just
whether it being that or
yeah.
Whatever you believe in, it can be whatever you want. But it's more about that, especially for the study. And I wanted to bring forward like just a bit more facts. I could spit facts all day about it and say blah blah blah. It does this. It's amazing. Blah blah blah. It's the best thing in the world. Blah blah blah. But when there's studies involved and there's proof behind it, it's magical.
Well,
it's very magical thing to look at.
That
and
is
you look at
the big thing I wanted to talk about is that what you just said there, right? Talking about those near-death experiences and stuff like that, and how they're so similar, is that what the key factors there in that study that seemed to sit out so far for me when I saw those numbers. Where can I bring it up? Here we go. Is that here? It was where are the ones that sit similar? There were ones that sit.
Oh, they're all very similar. If anything, they're just like.
But the fact that those experiences sit so similar is just obviously goes to show there's proof in the pudding of peace and the peace, the feelings of joy, and the life review.
Life review is beautiful.
It's massive. Is the fact that you actually can sit there after ingesting DMT or whatever it is like that. They are so similar to those near-death experiences that I guess you can maybe get people to find peace in what is coming before it happens.
Yeah, it's just that's the sad thing about Western society and the society that we live in. Like, we are told very, very early that if you're good, you go to a good place. If you're bad, you go to a bad place.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, that's it. It's just like we're not told anything. We're just saying, hey, that's it, and like it's scary. Like we're never told anything about it, so it's like got this big fear around it. So you can imagine like all these people, who were, for example, raised like very hard Christians or very, very hard Catholics who are said, if you don't go to church, if you don't do that, you're gonna go to hell. And like, could you imagine these people at the end of their life who, have tried to live their best life they possibly could, and they're human, so they make mistakes, and they've been angry, and they've done maybe bad things, they've done good things, and then for them to be like, oh my God, I'm going to die soon. I've got a countdown timer. I'm in so much pain. I feel miserable. What am I to do? And then someone comes along and goes, hey, try out this, see how you feel. And just like in the study says, it's just this amazing correlation to like this beautiful acceptance is probably the best way I can.
No, that's a really good analogy for the whole. At the end of the day, there's only one guarantee: is that when we're born, is that we will die. That is the only guarantee. That is the only guarantee that we have in life, is that at some point our life will end.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, just so that people don't think, oh, okay, I'm guaranteed to have this amazing experience. I know when I personally did DMT for the first time, I didn't break through. And it was a very powerful experience, but I would not call it pleasant.
No, you fall to the floor, your body goes all limp. The same thing happened to me. Your body goes all funny, your head goes limp. If you try and stand up too quick, you basically your ass falls out from under you. You need to be sitting down.
This comes back to seven setting, and like this is like comes back to even back to the study, like how they dosed it. It's all about knowledge. It comes back to the thing. So if you smoke 50 packs of cigarettes in a day, something bad's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like if you're not told how many cigarettes to have in a day and you have 50 or to 100, 200, something bad's going to happen. If you drink 300 glasses of water in a day, you're going to die.
You're going to die.
Like,
yeah.
So if we're not told about how things are done and how you're supposed to do things, you will die. Just like how you told as a kid, don't put a fork in, the power supply. Don't put a fork in the toaster. Like, bad things will happen. You know what I mean? Like all these crazy things. So it definitely comes back to that. So like your experiences sound like that setting and dosage and
once again, it just goes to the whole point of that there has to be controlled experience.
Oh yes. Anything that you like, any kind of medicine, right? It's been tested, right? So you have when they FDA, all that kind of stuff. They got to test it. They got to make sure it's safe, right? And this is what it's amazing that they're doing these studies on these things that we don't know a lot about, and they're going, okay, well, how does this work? Can you have too much? What happens if you give a depressed mouse psychoactives? Does it die or does it get better? Yeah, cool thing, it gets better. Funny. Like it's like back to setting, and dosage and all that kind of stuff. So if you're having you're having it incorrectly or dosing it incorrectly, if you're standing up, if you're not doing it in the right place, it's like would you do an ayahuasca ceremony while you're free falling from space like the Red Bull guy? No, you wouldn't.
No.
You know what I mean?
That just gave me anxiety. No.
You know what I mean? Like that. Like it sounds like it's too much. Like that's like a setting, and it's nothing. You just wouldn't. If you don't know how to do it, look it up, research it. There's lots of studies done. They've done it for a very long time, especially in America and overseas. They're starting to get these studies underway, and now in Australia as well. Look it up. Look how they do it, how they dose it. If you're unaware of how to do it, if you can't do it at home, if you just find ways. The internet is the library of Alexandria. It is beautiful. It's got everything you need in there. But take everything with a grain of salt.
Yep.
If it doesn't feel good inside when you read it, don't do it.
Yes, that's a very good bit of advice.
Yeah.
All right. Now
I also just wanted to say. To touch on something from the comments before, when I'd said a bad trip earlier, I don't think there's necessarily bad trips, but there's some trips that can be lessons.
Yeah.
And so I'd just like to say that, while it may not be, super peaceful, that's
a lesson to be learned.
Experience for everyone at first, when they first do it. It'll have a lesson in it, and it's something to take away from it.
And the integration process, that's why it's so important. After a bad trip, you have to integrate why you had a bad trip or a bad experience to kind of digest the meaningful lesson through that experience. A lot of people get
one there. There is one there.
And they get turned off from psychedelics. And it's like they haven't properly processed through why they had things arise from their experience. Because it really is just your subconscious, unconscious programming coming up, and some people they cannot digest it, so it end up being a bad trip,
like funny.
He had a bad trip, and it brought forward he didn't say bad trip, but it brought forward his trauma for him to face. Hunting for so many people who maybe not ready for that, but if you're going into this psychoactive experience or psychedelic experience with the intention to go, hey, it's going to be scary, it's going to be deep, it's going to hurt, but I'm ready to look at myself and go inside and go, hey, I want to work around on this. Let's have a look at this problem from a different perspective. Pull out for a second, lift out of this subconsciously, look at it from the third person, the fourth person, the 10th person, and go, okay, well, now that's rough. Why am I doing that to myself? Am I being so harsh on myself with that trauma? Or why do I think this, and why do I think that? And diving deep into the psychoactive mental capacities of it.
Well, the hurt. It's all about hurt, and Jack's really hit the nail on the head there. Like when you take psychoactive drugs, there is a degree of acceptance that you need to accept with yourself. you are going to face some shit.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, when you actively go, and this is the difference between a bad trip is when I was talking about before, you start sitting there and trying to fight it. It's that when that trauma or whatever gets brought up, and you're sitting there trying not to accept it. What is happening? What is happening there is that you're fighting your brain's ability to deal with either A, said trauma, or B, take a look at yourself from that outer perspective and accept who you are. We're only significant to the space that we either occupy or the space that we've made significance in.
100%, and not to switch topics, but to add into this. So in my life, I was always the person growing up that I pulled people out of bad trips, and I've always been the person that's been a trip sitter. And the same thing I'll tell them is the same thing I'll tell anybody know. Whenever you do any kind of psychedelic, imagine you're on a plane. Ever been on a plane? When you're on the plane, you're going to arrive at your destination, aka in a couple hours, it's going to be gone. You'll be off of it. But when you're on the plane, if you freak out, you can't freak out. You're 1,000 miles up. The best thing to do is enjoy the ride and relax.
Yeah.
And the second one is, most of you probably never been whitewater rafting, but whenever you do whitewater raft, the whole raft is really loose. So whenever you're on a trip, what I tell people is like, if you tense up and you fight, that's your ego trying to hold and control. Now, depending on the psychedelic, they affect you differently. If your mushrooms, it's your body, it's almost like a poison. It goes and affects your different peripheral vision. If you're on LSD, it goes into your actual system, like your spinal fluids. Both are different trips, but what matters most is knowing that you're experiencing something, and soon you'll be back to your regular self, and the more you can relax. Just like if you're on if you're on one of those whitewater rapids rides and you relax and go with the party, you flow through, you go through. But if you tense up and hard, you hit the rocks, you have a bad experience, you thrash, you go, because your ego doesn't want to let go. People do psychedelics because you can't solve the problems in your life with the same set of thoughts and minds that's creating. We don't try to get out of our heads to lose ourselves. Try to get a higher perspective so we can better know ourselves.
Bro.
And can I just add to that? The art of letting go, because a lot of times when you're on this ride, this experience, your ego will fight it. You know, there's a process of letting go of your old belief systems, and there's an art to it. It's like, you know, I've seen people go through an ayahuasca trip and their mind is fighting, their ego is fighting,
Trying to
holding on to their own belief system, their old
A dear life, because without it, who are they?
Tim Foote just put on that he spent a few years in therapy and also had some EMDR therapy, and has had similar effects to psychedelics, funnily enough. Before I went to Psychs, point being, I was familiar with processing and integration.
Well said.
That is a big. That's where it comes down to don't take acid if you're around shit people. Don't take psychedelics if you're around shit people. Like, so we've talked about. So sorry, what were you going to say, Ari?
I was just going to say that raises an interesting point, that in some types of therapy, there is kind of a crossover in the experience, but also, you know, even just from having one trip, it can then be something that can kind of help your brain to realize how to get to that state through meditation or through other methods where you don't even need to take and ingest something. But it's kind of vice versa. Having therapy beforehand can kind of help you to guide you there, or you know, tripping or ingesting a plant medicine can then help you to achieve those states when you're, you know, not on a substance.
100%.
I feel like I kind of butchered that wording, but I hope
not at all.
I was going to say just real quick to hit home what Ari said. Like, I've done ayahuasca 4 times, but before I ever touched ayahuasca, I went through 3 months of deep work, no drugs, no anything, spirit, like with groups, like clear-headed, to get my mind and body in order. Now, before we used to ayahuasca, it's dieta, 2 weeks. So, and then after you do it, like we've been saying, the most important part of an ayahuasca ceremony is when you sit together afterwards for the integration and preparation. So the traditional keepers of medicines teach us the importance of the journey. And why I say that is whenever psychedelics you do, treat it as a journey. Whenever you do it in setting, like, be prepared. You know, if you're going on a journey, you're probably going to pack your suitcase. You're probably going to get yourself together. You're probably going to be ready. You're not just going to go, oh, I'm drunk. It's a Friday night. My friends give me this thing. I'm going to take this.
That was me. That was me. I wasn't packing no fucking bags.
I would love to hear about your experience, man. I'd love to hear your experience. So your experience was really cool.
Okay, so my experience sort of stems from, I just loved drugs. Like, straight up. Look, I'll give you the complete candid version straight up and down, because you guys, and this is why I was so keen to have everyone on, is because from my perspective, I used it as a party thing. From everyone else's perspective, you used it therapeutically or artistically or stuff like that. So I guess my experience with the whole thing I just love the fucking party. And if you're going to give me something that cost me that much and it was going to give me 12 hours of like real fucking good shit, I'm there. I'm so there. In saying that, all my experiences with acid were so awesome. Like, they put me on they made me learn about myself. And if there's one thing I'll say about acid, is that it made me want to have kids. In the weirdest way, because the last I can actually, like, and this is why I said it before, is that out of all of my profound experiences in all my life, acid trips are one of the ones I really remember and I absorb. So I was sitting around and, like, Mrs. was out. I had this dirty trip that was sitting in a bag for a couple of weeks, and I'm just like, okay, she's out, fucking let's go. And I was on my own. I was on my own, and the weirdest thing is it's like you find out who you are as a person when you sit there and you take acid on your own and you don't have a trip sitter. Yeah. And I went through all the waves, and I went through all the experiences, and some were good, and I was freaking out, but for the most part, I disconnected from my body, and I realized that what I guess I wanted to do with my life was not completely what I was thinking at the time. In a sense where I was just like, I just want to fucking party and get fucking wasted all the time. But that last, and genuinely, it was actually my last experience with acid, is that I was sitting there on my own, and I had that experience, and I sort of disconnected from my body, and I saw the space I was sitting in, and I went, no, I don't want to do this forever. I want more. Yeah. I want more. I want to.
And how long ago was that?
6 years ago.
Oh, so
yeah. Like, the weird thing was when I went to Gymna, even though what may or may not have been accessible, it wasn't somewhere I needed to be anymore. It's like, I know what the experience is like. Yeah, it's fucking great, but I'm not looking for anything anymore.
You're not seeking. You found what you need.
Yeah. I'm finally
in the similar to Aris Story. Like it was there for what it needed to be, and that's the same thing they do in all the ceremonies as well. It's there as a medicine. If you're better, you don't need to take the medicine anymore.
It's not about
and that's a weird concept. That's such a weird concept in Western medicine, where it's like, if you're
don't
a diabetic,
take it all the time.
You're a lifelong prescriber.
Yeah, use insulin forever. That's it. So really, my experience was just, for better for worse, I've come out from it better on the other side. It made me realise that I was very much an atheist, and now I'm agnostic, in the sense that I do know in some weird sense of a way that there is a higher power out there. I'm just not about to sit there and go bowing to anyone. It's, in my opinion, from what I've experienced with my trips and stuff like that, said high power wants me to live this way, and I'm all good. You know, that's just my experience. But coming from Ari's experience, going from how she's battled addiction with it, Jack's experience talking about sort of DMT and stuff like that, what I'm really interested in is getting Jack and Jason's, like, not saying that I wasn't interested in everyone else's, but the ayahuasca experiences, man, because like you're talking about ancient rituals that have been going on for literally thousands of years in like the Incans and the Aztecs and stuff like that.
In our own country as well, you know, the Aboriginal people here, you know, the oldest ancient civilization.
I've never actually heard of it, and I'm going to look up on it now that you've said on it, but the whole spiritual journey of taking ayahuasca or peyote, as the layman's call it, you know, the peyote plant, and then going on that, what was that like as Westerners, not being integrated, especially being Roman Catholic? Like you, Johan, said you were brought up as like a Roman Catholic and stuff like that. What was that experience like, being brought up religious and then seeing that sort of other side of what you were taught to what you actually...
You go first, Johan. You go first. I'll tell mine after.
So I was going to say, one thing of interest to make clear is plants have spirits. So when it comes to ayahuasca is the feminine energy. Ayahuasca is the feminine form. When I was younger, like, even though I might sound like a tripper, like, you know, I got high grades in school thanks to psychedelics. I went from being, you know, a person that was on the verge of going to jail when I was in my teens. I was with the wrong crowd. I was getting into pills, coke in Florida. I was really in a bad place. And thanks to my neighbor introducing me to mushrooms, Bob Marley and weed. I listened to some wine, and I went from a failing student to one of the highest scoring in my high school for world history.
So just to put a little bit of perspective onto everyone, is that Johan moved to Australia and is actually a full-time musician by choice. He was homeboy was a full, like, was on big dollars in a, you know, the corporate world, and has actually found the time to detach from the monetary value of the corporate world and come into being basically a healer in some sense of a way.
Well, pretty much what I feel is I am a new sprout on an old vine, and I am part of a current that is going across this whole nation and world, because we are being pushed into the need where we are disconnecting from nature, and nature is what we are made of, and she will find a way, just like a powerful spirit, a person will find their way through the darkest of days.
Oh yeah.
So to circle back, yes, so psychedelics was when I came there. Circling back, as we said, there's two different types. So ayahuasca is the feminine. Specifically, ayahuasca is for South American. It is for the tribes. It's been used in the Amazon and the Peruvian tribes. I have been fortunate to sit with the Shipibo tribe of the Peruvian Amazon, or Peruvian, I should say. And then the second was with the Kusinau tribe, which was with from Brazil. And from the Amazon. Two totally different ceremonies. But the female energy. Now, Native Americans in North America, they do peyote and cactus, which also here we have San Pedro in Australia. That is a masculine energy. Two totally different spirits in the plants. So a lot of what I have experienced, I've been very fortunate and grateful, where I was raised by an amazing mom, and a lot of people where I have been through the darkest days. You know, and through that, I learned to respect people who hold wisdom. And because I have, you know, when I was a teenager, I was the only white kid, like, in the school that was 67% black, 80% between Hispanics. I was beat up every day. I was completely focused on the fact that I was the center of a lot of heat. And because of that, once I left and went to my hometown, Delray, and I found my tribe, I have a lot of respect for people not trying to lead like I'm the white man, I know better. If that makes sense. And that's when I'm very firmly believe that all of us have a path and journey. The more we are open to it, the more it opens to us. And the reason I say that is when it comes to ayahuasca and those things, I wanted to do it a long time ago, but I had a lot of trauma from a very rough childhood. My mom did a great job, incredible job.
They all do, man.
She was raising 3 kids on her own.
Yeah, I feel you. My mom done too, man. Yeah, I feel you. We're kindred spirits, Johan.
My dad had his demons, and I have a good relationship with him now. So the main thing is it doesn't change that for that time of my life. I went through a lot of trauma and drama, a lot of pain, a lot of anger. Yet, thanks to my mom, I was always very positive and loving as a person. Because I feel like when the world squeezes you, what comes out? And if you're full of hate and sadness, that's what you get. Oh. And psychedelics was a window for me to truly face that darkness. And the only reason I did mushrooms at that time when I was younger was because I had a group of friends around that we did it together. We eat mushrooms, listen to Radiohead, laugh. And the reason I say all this going back to ayahuasca and these ceremonies is every hallucinogen, everything in my personal point of view is connected to a lineage.
Yeah.
It's connected to a history. And all of us have a deep history and a connection in a lineage, whether we know it or not. And we might feel alone, we might feel confused and conflicted in this world because we're all in our head. The reality is the world and around us is created by man. And the more we can tap into the world that is our ancestors and the land and the places and things that truly will connect us to the deepest part, the more we understand who we are.
100%.
And the reason I bring that back is, like Ari said, I went through a lot of work before I did ayahuasca. And when I sat with ceremony, I turned it down 3 times. 3 times with people in Florida because I wasn't ready and the feeling didn't feel right. So if anybody is out there thinking of doing it, don't rush to the jungle. Don't rush into a ceremony with somebody. Because when I sat with 2 powerful curanderos, traditional keepers, they would tell me, right now we're dealing with a crisis where there's a lot of spiritual egos, people calling themselves healers, calling themselves shamans, calling themselves these people that are trying to cash in on a sacred medicine with traditional keepers and traditional songs in traditional space that needs to be honored. The gods that we work with and the space we create. There is no, whenever you work with these people, there is no saying, I am the healer, I do the healing. No. They hold this space. Yeah. The person does the healing. Exactly. The medicine opens the clarity for them to come back to themselves. So 100%. Getting back to that. Sorry, I'm on a tangent.
No, dude, seriously, but this is the thing where people need to understand is that on the broader spectrum is that there are greater. I guess it's like putting together a bit of fucking flat pack furniture. There are greater minds that have already done the work for us. There is a reason why you need to listen to these elders or these spiritual guides, because there's a reason for it. In a sense where, because this is what I was talking about before, I've spoken about to all you guys before, is that the disconnect of Western culture with those out of body experiences.
Yeah.
Whether you talk about the Norwegians with the mushrooms and stuff like that, or you
I'm descended from the Vikings, man.
Yeah, you know. But it just goes to show you that it obviously was around us at all times. Where you have the Aboriginals with DMT, you have the South Americans with the peyote plant, you have you have the Vikings with the mushrooms. Like, obviously these out of body experiences and these tripping experiences have been around for a lot longer than what we've actually known. Do you guys think, in a sense, it's what helped us evolve into the self-aware beings that we've become today?
Well, there's like that really amazing theory where they talk about, Joe Rogan talks about it all the time. It's a very common thing he talks about, and people, they kind of put him on blast for it, whether he says, that he believes in the Stone Age theory where, we were apes, on the plains of Africa possibly, or wherever whatever.
Stone Age theory, Stone Age.
We ingested mushrooms, it was there. It was a food source, and different things, sometimes we, got eaten by big snakes, or we got eaten by, an alligator, but sometimes there was, a mushroom plant, and we're like, hey, this actually changes my thought patterns, and this changes how I view the world around me. And if that doesn't evolve anyone's brain or anything's brain, then
well, in a sense, it makes you think that it made us sentient beings, in the sense that we became self-aware in the fact that we don't just occupy space where we wake up, hunt, protect ourselves and go to sleep. We are actually capable of creation. We are capable of a further process of just survival.
Mm-hmm. So I was just gonna say, I didn't mean to digest, but I want to circle back to something which is very crucial, probably the most important thing I can say right now, which is what we were talking about with traditional keepers, and that's the packing. So the reason I want to share this, when I sat with the Noah tribe with Guru, he's incredible man, one of the UN people. Like, when you look into this man, like, he saved his family from the Amazon, like, he's people being massacred, and he's a traditional keeper, and he first did ayahuasca at 7 years old, and then too much ayahuasca, and he was off in the jungle for 48 hours. So the reason I'm bringing him up and telling him, giving respect and love to him and Heidi, is he told me something about traditional keepers and understanding this. And to put in reference, I am not trying to down anybody here or anybody knows anybody that's trying to give medicine to people, because I think some people do have good intentions. They have a profound experience, and they're leading with love, and they're wanting to share this with people. But he put it in a clear way, which is we need to be a hollow bone. Native Americans say a hollow bone, which is a strong space to hold the space of people you're with, but hollow for spirit to go through you. And if your ego is connected to their healing, if your ego is connected to money and to all these things, you are bringing lower vibrations, lower spirits, lower entities in. And if you do not have the right backing of a higher dimension of spiritual beings, aka a lineage of your ancestors, there to watch your back and support you, if you have known the medicine so many times where you can go into the darkness and bring people to the light, then you are attracting these lower vibrations into your circle. You're attracting these lower vibrations into your ceremony, and you are putting everybody at risk around you, even though you have good intention. It's like a spirit's going around going, oh, I get you. You're kind of nice and you're kind of good, but you want to use people. Let's do it. Whereas when you're high vibration and you're love, like me personally, I've sat at so many ceremonies and so many different types of medicine. I'll never say I'm a healer. I will never say that I'm a shaman.
No.
I'll say I work with medicines and I'm a guide. And the reason why is respecting the traditional keepers, the energy and the spirits. So when I sit ceremony and I support, that way I know that I'm honoring the spirits around me. Because we're operating in a dimension we don't understand. We're working with the medicine that we may not comprehend. We're working with our psyche, trying to integrate into the world that is already conflicting and confusing in so many ways. And the wisest thing we can do is walk with reverence and respect, and with those who have walked through the darkness and come out with the torch of light, not those shining the light because they think that they found the light.
See, the crazy thing here is that, like, and this is why I'm so happy that I've got everyone on here, is that I've got Jack and I've got Ari that really sort of talk about the medical sort of practitioner through the whole thing, but then you've come across Johan and really talked about the sort of spiritual thing and the preparation. It's more so the preparation of what, I guess, what you need in order to actively get the most out of a guided trip situation, if you were taking that spiritual guide, in the sense
it's Native Americans call it, you ever heard the eagle and condor?
No. Go on.
So every Native American tribe, since the time of when white man came to the States, and I speak not as a speaking point of the Native people, just somebody that has been blessed to listen to their stories. And the reason I say that is when the white man first came to the States, they said they had a mind parasite called the Whitago. This is his disconnect from the land, thinking that I am ego, I am ownership, this is property, this is my space, I am here, you are there, I am me, I am my thoughts. And Native American traditional people are the condor. They are the traditional keepers of the land. And their focus is, no, we are all one. That soil and earth, within that is my grandfather and their fathers and their people who died. Within that soil is the dirt of the animals I have eaten and lived off of. When I die, I'm going to be in the dirt. How can you say that you own this land when this land is part of everything and everything we are? So the Native Americans have a traditional story called the story of the eagle and the condor. The eagle is, from my understanding, the West, the American, English, European expansion,
The white
property
man.
ownership, capitalism, economy. These are all these elements, right? So they have this prophecy, which is first that there was the eagle, aka the time we lived in up until now. Us, the civilization, are flying with one wing, and that's been the masculine for many generations, subjugating the feminine energy, not just the feminine in this world, but the energy of balance. Now we are rising at a time where they believe that the condor, which is South American and Native American energy and spirit of that love, connection to the land, unity, there's a time when both of them will fly together. And when they fly together is when both wings open. That's the time a lot are saying now where the feminine, everyone's getting a lot more personal, a lot more, people are almost like getting really more sensitive. But that's because the feminine energy is rising. That is the balance. So a lot of Native Americans talk about when the two fly together, which is exactly like you're saying. It's when science, spirituality fly together. Versus what's happening right now. Breath work, spirituality.
What was that?
100%. Extremely linked.
Yeah, they are. And like, this is when you could even start talking about people's auras and
They don't fly together, they die together. That's what they say.
That's it, man. It's like, what I talk about politics. It's like everyone talks about left and right wing. What about the actual bird?
I've never heard that.
If the wings aren't flapping together, that bird's going straight to the fucking ground. You can be left and right wing all you want, man. If those wings aren't flapping together, we're going down.
And are we a chicken or are we an eagle?
Yeah, that's it. Well, what's that old saying? A turkey can't fly hanging around. An eagle can't fly hanging around with a bunch of turkeys.
What is Zach saying in the chat just there? We've got.
It's all the same medicine. The journey into it. The journey into the spiritual. Well, this is the reason why I was so happy when I met you guys, to actually have the ability to come on and do this chat, because the stigma, the whole concept of people, the whole concept of Westerners having an outer body experience to be able to disconnect and then reconnect with their bodies to be able to deal with their problems is so far gone. I feel like, and I've said this to you guys before, that those experiences, walkabout, the peyote experiences, made us at such a young age. You got to think, when these things were done, they were done when you were like 12 or 13, just when you were getting pubes and shit. Like, you done this at a really young age where your body is going through so many chemical changes to begin with. You're going through puberty, and then as your rite of passage into the world, you got to go on like a 3-day experience after like taking peyote or something like that. But the whole point of it is that when you come out of it, is that you realize that it doesn't really matter what's going to happen in those next couple of stages of your life. Is, in the weirdest sense, it's like when you think about it, when they would have done it, they would have been stuck out in a fucking desert on their own, no water, tripping fucking balls. Let's be serious. They would have been fucking just like shit carted 6 ways from Sunday, stuck out in the desert on their own. But when they come out of that experience, they realise life ain't that fucking bad. Life is only going to be a beautiful experience. Like if I can make it through this high pressure, this high dense, stressful experience, what else am I capable of?
Amazing feats. Amazing.
Yeah,
Human body is an insane, creative, adaptive, beautiful machine. It's like it can do and feel and make anything.
Fucking oath.
I was gonna say, not to divert, but like you were saying, like psychedelics now are finally being researched. But I just finished an interview for Indifferential magazine, and the only reason I'm bringing that up is we had this deep chat, and exactly like you said about musicians, and they asked me a big role, and like you're saying, right now, yes, we're just getting into psychedelics in regards to clinical research, which is done a lot. We're getting into more evidence-based. But if you consider over the evolution of time, musicians and artists have always been at the forefront of taking forms of psychedelics, taking forms of life-changing things. But the critical part is not that we're out there weirdos.
Nina Simone, if you don't know who Nina Simone is,
this is after this, well, hang on. And the only reason I make the point is like, this really hit me hard when somebody told me this the other day. And that was the point that, think of each one of us when we were growing up. Who was the most influential in our life? Was it the teacher? Was it the preacher? Was it our parents? It was probably the musicians and artists we listened to. It's probably those are the people that we dress like, we thought like, we think like. So go to the source when you are ready. Because we are all like, the thing that somebody told me the other day that I really respect and appreciate is he said that a spiritual awakening, psychedelics, it's not as pretty and rosy as you want it to be, because reality in life is not pretty and rosy, but we make it up in our mind that it is. So intention is the most important element, whether you do psychedelics or you live your life. Set your intention for love and kindness. And whenever you're going to go into any experience, whether it's living your life or taking a psychedelic, set the intention and remember that in life, we're only given so many breaths. So even if breath work is somewhere you can get DMT naturally released in your body. You can actually go right now online on YouTube in the safety of your home and look up breath work and activate DMT in your body. And yes, it's scary, but the most important thing to remember is your journey is not alone. That's what I'm saying. Musicians and artists, people that inspired you and everything, we are collective. We are all part of one race. And the more we work together, the more we support each other, the more we love each other, when we share these experiences, the more we grow together instead of go off in dark places alone and feel alone in a tower of isolation. The roots of creation is built on our roots going through hell for our bridge to go to heaven. And the only way we can do that is watering each other, looking after each other as brothers and sisters.
100%. They always say that like artists are whereas our job as artists, that forms all kinds of art, not just musicians. You know,
that is.
Painters,
It
involves creative thinking, right? Yeah. It's the whole idea that we display what's on display. If that makes sense. Very, very basic. So whatever is going on in the world, in that present moment, we look at it and go, yeah, that's cool, but we should. This bit's really bad. Can we fix this bit? Let's have a chat about this bit. Good, guys. Let's change that.
I like to hold comedians and musicians probably in my highest state of, I guess, really pressing the mold as far as creativity goes, because.
The bear, they go,
exactly.
No.
Musicians and comedians, man, they love poking the bear, and that's what I like to see. Because if you ever look at the whole thing on a broader spectrum, is that comedians are there to piss people off and to really make them think on that broader spectrum. Some of the best comedians you'll ever see. That's exactly right, and mate. Some of the best comedians you'll meet are fucking acid trippers. You know what I mean? Some of the best musicians.
Man.
You know what? If you and this is my big thing that I really like to try and tell. If you really have that much of a problem with drugs, throw out all your CDs, throw out all your art, throw out like anything artistic, grab it,
yeah.
chuck it in your fucking bin, because drugs are fucking involved. Whether it's a person fucking recording it, whether it's a person singing it, whether it's a person mastering it, in some way, like art, and you know what? In some weird sense of a fucking waste science, because Albert Einstein was a massive stoner. There have been plenty of like there have been plenty of fucking known scientists that are all like exactly. Like no, but do you know what I mean? This whole thing that like this whole drug users aren't thinkers. Like drug users are far like they're so beyond thinking that they need to think on something else.
So I'm not gonna diverge, but I was gonna say I think one of the most critical discussions that's happening now, and that will be the center point for the next 10 years, is the difference between drugs and medicine. Because right now we are being peddled things that are sold as medicine that are technically drugs, and we are being labeled things that have been medicines for thousands of years across many traditions and cultures from our ancestors and many tribes and religions as drugs.
Yep.
And I'm not arguing against that, because there are a lot of systems in place and a lot of reasons why, but I really think it comes down to the individual to make up their own decision and to trust themselves and to be around the right people, not to let people make the decision for them, but to have their own life and journey
and discern the information. You know.
Look, I won't lie. I go off the whole Oxford dictionary thing of anything that alters your state of mind or consciousness is a drug.
So music's a drug.
Yeah.
Mate, music, mate, 100%. Oh, okay. Do you want to know how I know music's a drug? Because I've never felt more euphoric in a sober state than when I've been at a fucking concert.
Exactly.
The chemicals that music can make you release in your fucking brain. Music is a drug, 100%. But in saying that, you could turn around and call. Okay, when my wife gave birth to my children, that could have been classed as a drug. The chemicals that released that made me cry at that time, the amount of endorphins that were released when I saw my child for the first time. No, but you know what I mean? Like, but this is where I'm saying that our brain is meant to produce these things. If, as a psychiatrist, and this is why I was so keen to do the chat, if on a medical sense that we could make those chemicals happen on a bigger scale at a quicker time in order to relieve people's pain or PTSD or addiction or stuff like that. Mate, if I could say anything, probably acid got me off pills. Like, I haven't really taken, like I used to love MDMA, but I haven't thought of MDMA since I've had my little stint with acid.
One thing I'm going to say, just because we haven't talked about it that much, and because I personally don't think we're going to dive into it this conversation, is ketamine.
Oh yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is I was against it for many years. I was told it was a horse tranquilizer. I was told multiple things that I was against it. I even had a partner I was dating when I found out I could get ketamine and she wanted it. I broke it off with her. Like, I was very much against it. And two friends of mine that were on suicide watch, hugely successful people, very successful, wealthy people with families. And both of them were on suicide watch. And they were on antidepressants for years. And both of them, within 3 ketamine treatments, completely left their careers separately. Both started holistic businesses, completely transformed their life. And when I was against it, they reached out to me and said, if you look up, it's like ketamine right now. And the reason I'm saying this is because, like you're saying, what I have been completely blown away by is the results. Right?
Yeah.
Somebody that does a ketamine treatment, it activates 13 to 16 different receptors in your brain. And it's proven 30 times more effective than any antidepressant in the market. And instead of doing one pill every day, you do one session a couple weeks after 2-3 months, 1 month, you're good. And the only reason it's not super widespread is because they don't actually know the depth of what it does for
Yeah,
you.
the research is
just
quite
know
new.
the research has proven time and time again that it really deeply helps and profoundly supports people. So I'm not saying go out and do ketamine right now. Definitely not at all.
You don't need moon boots on a 9:30 on a Friday night.
In Australia,
Especially not
like,
out.
I'll tell you one thing from the States, like the LSD here is way better. Love LSD in Australia. It's completely just made with so much love. And with ketamine, I feel like there's a huge culture around it right now. A lot of people doing it. And the most important thing is to research, understand it, and take it in slow. Anything you do, take it in slow. But the reason I say that is I've had breakthroughs having ketamine sessions with these guys. We've had breakthroughs with his brothers, and it was in a controlled environment with a group of people looking after each other, not at a party, not going crazy.
It really brought me into the present moment, and how the present moment is the only thing that will ever exist and always existed. It took me out of my past and in my anxiety of the future, and just brought me into the moment that is the only moment that will ever exist, is the now. And it's a very therapeutic and healing understanding when you understand that the past is the past. The future will unfold the way it's meant to, but being in the present moment is the only thing that will ever exist.
Because then you got Doctor Strange just talking about contact.
And Hollywood's bringing up all this stuff.
And just coming back with Jack, like you probably know the DMT experience, when you break down that understanding of the time we live in, like I think that my personal view is I have a very positive outlook on life. As I think you do, Jack, and Nick, all of us. And one thing that I think most profound is with it is those experiences of looking beyond this limited understanding of how we see the world. We live in a box. Like a lot of us think we have a box in our head that we live in. And any psychedelic thing you do breaks you out of that. And when you can, there's religions, there's different spirituality, breathwork, so many things, yoga, where without any psychedelics, you dive in and they dive past where the past, present, future, everything exists as one. And when I sat with traditional keepers, sorry to hog the spotlight, but what's interesting, when I did my last ayahuasca ceremony and I played music for everybody, and I just went through around the fire. This was 2019 before I came to Australia. We had a massive ceremony. We're all around the fire, and I'm talking. We're so happy. We're so full of love. And then he looks all us. He goes, "Very soon there will be a lot of death in the world. There will be a lot of chaos." We're like, "What?" This is before COVID, before any of this stuff. This is a man from the jungle, and he's looking at all of us. He goes, "There's going to be a time of confusion, illusions, and refusing to accept that the life in the world that we live is a lie. And everything we hold here
COVID was a massive moment for that. It was just like a massive hey, everyone was like, oh my God, I'm locked inside my house. I have to actually be with myself for like 5 more minutes than I normally am. And we're allowed to look at it and go, oh my God, what are we doing to this planet? What am I doing?
Man, I think it destroyed a lot.
There's global corona consciousness.
The weirdest thing with coronavirus is I think it destroyed a lot of creativity, in a sense where admittedly it made a lot more people be creative, but as far as creative people then getting locked down, especially musicians, it forced the hand of and this is one thing I've noticed off doing the podcast and stuff like that, is that it forced the hand of a lot of bands and musicians and stuff like that to find a new creative outlet, which meant their music took the backside, and then it just didn't happen anymore. In a sense where you found some people where they were like, okay, music was my outlet. My outlet's been taken away. I have to find a new outlet, and now I don't think I want to do music anymore.
And that's
completely acceptable. It's a completely
That's amazing. And there were some amazing artists that, like myself included, who adapted. We grew, and we were like, we're not gonna let some very basic laws stop us from doing things. If you want to put these laws in place, fine, we'll follow the law, but I'm still gonna do it my way.
Yeah. Well, Tim Foote brings up a really good point. Neuroplasticity is something they all have in common.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that, you could not hit the nail. Like, and that is the one. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's mushrooms, it doesn't matter whether it's LSD, DMT. The fact that it makes you plastic in your brain and question your being, I guess transcends you into a higher. The weirdest thing is that what I found with people that do take these substances is that they don't need a lot. They realize that they don't. You realize that the big house, the big car, the big this, the big that, they're just fucking things. They are not a part of you. They are not the substance of the being or the entity that you are. They are just merely things that you possess. Possession is a lot different to substance.
Real quick, I didn't want to deflect, but just like we've had previous conversations, I've told you my story, and don't, just before we divert from that, like, don't forget, it was 2020. I came here to Australia on a 3-month tour. I had a full-time career in Florida. I had a band. I was in the studio. I was going on tour. I had 50 different shows that were in the works, but primarily big shows, massive festival. I worked 4 years to set everything up in the States, and COVID happened, and I was stuck here in Australia. I got in a hole. I had nowhere to go. My entire life was predicated after I left my corporate job to have a live musician career and a songwriter, and everything I worked 3 years for was swept from under me. And I was back here in Australia starting fresh, homeless on my friend's couch. This is 2020. So the reason I'm telling this story is, right after that, I was in a low, and like you're saying with music, I didn't view it as an outlet. I viewed it as a career at that time. And it took somebody going into my car, breaking in, stealing my guitar, stealing all my equipment, me completely getting broken. And then I read a book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, which is a life-changing book. Now, the reason I'm telling this story is I had a good friend here, Jay, and we were living together. He's a powerful, powerful man. And we butted heads, but he's like, oh, I'm going 6 weeks through the desert to the center of Australia because we can't be near people. And I was reading this book, so I'm like, whatever, even though we butt heads, but I don't really want to spend another 3 hours with you. Even every single day with you in the car. I mean, you're a good guy, but the ego on me, like, it just doesn't work. But I love you. But anyways, I surrendered. But the one promise I had is I took a vial of LSD with me, and I microdosed every day for 6 weeks going through deserts in Central Australia. And the reason I'm telling this story is 2 outcomes I had. One, actually my guitar and all my equipment was stolen. People around the world rallied, sent me messages. And music changed for me to be about me and accomplishing tasks and metrics, being seen and doing things. And it became the community, people around me that I touched, and seeing that come back brought my heart back. And going psychedelics every day in the desert, I was against LSD, which I knew for years, and it took one of my friends here in the Wayward Sons, I won't name him, I played the show with him.
You could have fooled me.
And I went to drink some water, and I took a big gulp. He's like, no.
I hope you haven't got anything due for like a month, man.
Don't freak out, but you just took 2 drops of LSD. I'm like, what? No, that's quite stage here. You were on the desert? No, this is the post time. So then after that, like, I had this profound experience connecting to this land of Australia, the Rainbow Serpent, and this beautiful place that we were so blessed with these traditional keepers to share this land with. And after that, I was like, well, maybe LSD's okay. Maybe Australia's okay. And
they lied to me. It's what we've been talking about. They lied to me the whole time. It's not that fucking bad.
Yeah, and so when I microdosed every day, I was doing it every day for
that would have been
6 weeks.
Fucking experience, man.
Yeah, and like the biggest thing I found is the same thing I found when I did meditation every day, when I did breathwork every day, and that is seeing how every minute, every day, your thoughts change, your emotions change, or how like a thought or something happens and you make up a story in your head. And you're creating a whole world within you instead of being in the world around you.
It changes your physiology as well.
Yeah, and when I did it, I gave so much gratitude specifically because You know, at the end of the day, whether you're an artist, whether you're a business person, you're a parent, whatever role we have to play, we are part of a collective. And that's when I learned that element of understanding that we all have something to offer. We all have a gift. And the more we connect to the things that are present in our life, the less we run away from them, the more we work through the things we need to work through with the people in our lives, whether we need psychedelics or whether we just need a hug, whether we need to laugh, or whether we need to listen to a song, or whether we need to dance or do cacao. Whatever your medicine is, that's the key. Your medicine can be anything. It could be a platform, even though it doesn't have to always be psychedelics.
Love it, man. So
thank you guys for letting me talk. I love you guys.
No, dude. Well, look, at the end of the day, there's science and then there's knowledge. Like the science is obviously trying to constantly know the further knowledge, like constantly knowing and learning the logic inside it. Where as when you sort of take a step back and take that spiritual, it's just like, okay, this is going to happen, but your experience is your experience, and you need to own that experience.
Beyond the logic.
Yeah. Where like, there's nothing logical about it. In the sense where if Jack was to take it, he'd have an experience. If I was to take it, I'd have my own experience and stuff like that. I guess that where it comes down to your said damage as to what experience that's going to bring up. I know I like saying the word damaged a lot, but at the end of the day, we're humans. We get damaged. Like the whole concept of. And that's why I try and make it a really comfortable thing, is that we've all got damage. We're all like, at the end of the day, we're a vehicle of our own. We're a vehicle of our own subconscious, and every day and every experience that we have, it may take knocks, it may be smooth sailing and stuff like that from there. But at the end of the day, we all have in our own way damage. Like any vehicle, you know, like the way you run it, the way you drive it, it's going to do certain things to it. Everyone drives a car different. It's the weirdest concept. The way I like
something towards something, you know,
and also damaged people.
Yeah, hurt people.
Oh, yeah, man.
Exactly.
Like we're
continuum, man.
Yeah, we're just I guess expanding on the consequences of what we have and stuff like that. But in saying that, what are your guys in this current space in time? How do you, if you'd like to say whether you do or do not use it, how do you currently use substances like psychedelics in your day-to-day life?
For me, I would say it's a creative tool. It can be used as a creative tool, especially for like if you want to see things from a different perspective. But that, in saying that, you can see anything from any perspective at any time. Really, it can be about helping you create that masterpiece or tell that story in a different way or from a different perspective that you wouldn't have originally thought of before, or couldn't have thought of before because you weren't in the right headspace to do it. So like, it just depends. It really just depends on how you want to do it. If you want to, like for me, sometimes experiencing a group session together with friends that you are 100% comfortable with as well is something I like to do as well. Also,
like my birthday party.
Yeah. Being around like your set and setting is super important. Like, and that is like, I know it sounds extremely repetitive and extremely silly, but people who haven't done it or have done it, they know that it's really about the people that you're with, and while you're doing stuff and making sure it's in a beautiful space. You're in the sunshine if you can be. You know, you're out in nature where it's derived and you're connected to. You know, there's something so beautiful about that. You know, and like going back to, you know, Hoffman and his bike ride. You know, that first experience for him would have been heavenly. I don't have a word for it.
Could you imagine? And Tim said it really well here. Science helps us explain the unexplainable. It's meant to be questioned.
Exactly. exactly. And that's what they say about science is like they're all theories. They don't really know. They just go, okay, this is the amount of stuff that we have done, and this is what the result was. This is what we got. We did trial and error, and we hope that's correct. And it never sometimes is, and we like that. It comes back to that placebo effect again, where you can literally have nothing and then feel something.
Yeah. What about you, Johan? Go on.
Well, real quick, before we go, I was going to say, Jack, you hit on the head. Something I was saying is understanding placebo, nocebo. And like, I think with psychedelics, even with microdosing, they've shown evidence when, people don't and do take microdose, it's the same thing if they think they're taking it.
Yeah.
And it's the mindset, so that's coming back to, like you're saying, you've already probably, I'm assuming, Jack, Dr. Oh my gosh, why am I on the brain part right now? He's the one who does all the breath work and he does the focusing the balance. Joe Dispenza. And he's incredible. Yeah, because he was working for drug companies and they're like, oh, there's placebo effects. Throw it out. He's like, wait, all these people are miraculously healing. Why aren't we researching it? And then he got fired. He started his whole enterprise, breath work, and this thing.
But did he have an accident? Or his leg, or he was
no, that paraplegic. No, you're talking about that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure.
If it's both of them, then I'm like,
Dispenza had a condition where he had an accident. And he was paraplegic, and he crazy because Espen had the same.
Just so that it's incredible. But just circling back, I'm saying, sorry, I love to talk because I just feel like there's so much. I spend so much of my life being quiet and not speaking about these things.
Well, I have a feeling we're gonna have to do a part 2.
I think it'd be pretty cool.
Because we're hitting the 2.5 hour mark. I'm gonna have to end it the next 15 minutes, but we're definitely gonna do a part 2.
I'll make mine really quick. So when I was in that depressive hole in 2020, and I was homeless and I was here unsure with my life, my career, what to do, I had a lot of fear in the future, a lot of fear in the world, a lot of fear of how to make a living, a lot of fear about my family, my future, and I gave up. There was a time where I completely threw the towel and I was like, there's bigger powers with lots of money and a lot of influence that really don't care about me, don't care about my family or anybody. And I was in a very dark hole. And the vision I have now when it comes to any form of psychedelics, I call them medicines. Because, if somebody wants to, like, we were at Gymna, we did breath work, Qigong, guided meditation before music. And for me, that's medicine. Whether it's sitting medicine, psychedelics, or that, my daily life is bringing magic into my life and into the world.
We are the Yowie, the magical beast.
I love it, man. I love it. No, look.
I was just so as of this coming, like at the end of the year, I'll be sitting 2 separate ceremonies. One going back to Arizona to sit with Native American tribes to actually traditionally sit community, and then the second one will be again with the tribes for grandmother. My focus in everyday life is I have done microdosing psychedelics many times. I hold space for people, specifically that are going through deep situations. Because I lead with love. I don't do it as a drug. I do it as medicine. And sometimes people come to me wanting to do trips and doing things, and I don't. I literally sit with them and hug them and we do breath work, or we go to the beach and I just talk with them. So I view myself as a medicine man moving forward, where I want to be that space where people can get rid of their fear and look to the future with hope, and look to their life with clarity, and look to themselves with confidence. And whether it's music or whatever I do. So I'm going to pass out.
No, man, no, seriously. Like, Johan, your spirit, like your whole spiritual aspect on that. It's nice to get the science side, and then it's nice to get the spiritual aspect side, because, like you said, now that those birds are slowly starting to move in cohesion, those wings, like,
they can flap together. We can flap, baby.
Yeah, man. Jason, what are your experiences?
Merge the ideologies together. I mean, science. What is life? Life is science and art. Yeah. There's unexplainable sides to life. But in this, science can only take us so far. And
I don't mean to interject, but I just wanted to acknowledge Jason. Jason's been a friend of mine for a long time.
Aww.
But the reason why I spent the last year creating a course in mental health called Depression to Expression, creating an inner compass for all of us without any hallucinogens.
Yeah.
And I've sent it to many people. He was the first person to complete it. He's been deep in his. I made a 22-day meditation challenge. Every day is outlined, 22 day breath work. He's writing modules, man. He's been deep into it. And what I can share is anybody that you have anything you want to create, whether it's taking this course to be part of our ecosystem, but the greatest joy I have is connecting to him and hearing his feedback on what he's gotten from it. And,
Have you got a link to that course?
yeah, so
Give me the link. Give me the link. I'll put it in the description at the bottom.
So I just finished the last beta testers because we had a group and I've gotten so much incredible feedback from results. So I'm about to launch it globally to everybody. And included within that is this. It's a network to be seen, to be supported. If you're a conscious creator, innovator, whatever you're doing, I really believe there's dark days ahead of us, but we can make it lighter and the trip lighter by us being here together and us sharing light with each other and us supporting each other.
I admire it, man. The amount of positivity you have after the shit hand that you got dealt in Australia.
Life's dealt me a lot of shit. That's why
Yeah,
I'm
man.
positive. I'm very positive and happy because I'm some bullshit person. So I'm just reciting shit that I see online. I'm somebody that's been through hell and I refuse to let people stay there because I know that other people pull me out of it. And that's why I want to stand for love and light. And I'm no longer going to bow down, be pushed aside by aggressive men or aggressive agendas that want nothing except to exploit and use people. I believe in love, unity, and supporting and empowering people. People aren't helpless. They just need the support to stand strong and firm.
No, man, you just said it there. People aren't helpless. They just need help.
I think when we say help, you're saying they're helpless. Like, that's the thing I learned in gratitude. I used to always want to save the world and help the world. And my mentors and coaches then were like, why do you want to save the world? Why do you want to help the world? Can you not help yourself? Is that why you feel you need to help others? Because that gives you a sense of entitlement and empowerment. Like, no, dude. You need to support others. You need to let them stand on their own 2 feet, to find their own footing, to find strength.
By example.
We're all one consciousness at the end of the day. So you're helping someone else. You're really helping the greater good, you know?
Exactly. So Jace, your typical application, I guess, as far as psychedelics and stuff go to your day to day. How?
Sorry, say that again, man?
So you obviously like still use
every day, all day.
No, not like that. How do I guess psychedelics help you in your life at the moment?
At the moment, well, it just brings me clarity to bring me back to baseline consciousness for me. I mean, it all depends on the intention I put behind it. I mean, you know, like I can use it as a tool for creativity. I can use it as a container with people who want to heal. Right now, I mean, there's just so many applications. At the moment, I haven't really been on a big ceremonial journey, probably in the last 2 years, because I got so much out of the last ceremony I did, which was probably about 2 years ago. Yeah. So for me, I'm kind of using it more to have fun. And
Mate, and mate, and you know what? That's perfectly fine as far as the applications can be. That you've dealt with what you need to deal with, and now you can use it as a creative and fun outlet.
Yeah, I'm using it as a tool. Like I'm these days, I'm just microdosing. Like Aris doing, I don't know what she was doing. Just I microdose here and there to create a creative container. Yeah.
I'm curious, since you haven't had as much time to speak as the rest of us, Jason, what was it that stuck out to you? What is it that you feel really passionately about when, you know, not just in what you've researched? What is it to do with psychedelics that you feel like is...
No, that's a really good question, because you were so keen to jump on.
Toad medicine, 5-MeO-DMT, which is quite new in the
mainstream.
It's becoming more mainstream, but toad medicine, 5-MeO-DMT, which is it's been told that it is the apex psychedelic experience. It's the top of the top. And we've always been told that DMT is the highest trip you're gonna have, but 5-MeO is, for me, I've done it 3 or 4 times now, and it's reaching God consciousness.
Did you? So you actually got that like, because the one thing with this is the one thing that spins me out with DMT. Yeah. If the one thing I've seen with all the videos and all the science that goes along with it is that it's the one drug that no matter who takes it, they get the fucking exact same experience. Like, you will transcend into that space where you will be sitting with the gods, or so, like, it may not be the exact same experience, but you transcend into that. It's very similar.
Very well. There's always the waiting room. There's always the waiting room.
There's NN-DMT, which is the DMT Joe Rogan and everyone's talking about, and then there's 5-MeO-DMT, and they're completely different experiences.
Oh, okay.
They are nothing alike. 5-MeO-DMT isn't a spectral, visionary trip. You do not even have many visuals. It's not a visual trip. It's 5 minutes of reaching this space of hyperbolic love and light. For me, I've done it 4 times. There was very minimal visuals. It was just pure awareness, pure God awareness, knowing that life and death is just a continuum that's going to go forever and ever. And it was a very healing experience, because you realize that you're basically being reborn again. And this is a lot of religions talk about, being reborn again, like the Christian faith, where what's it called? Being baptized, which is, being baptized is just the way they show it. It's like the act. It's like the act, being reborn. It's the faith of being reborn. It's just faith, but when you're actually reborn with this medicine, it's like you have a complete different outlook on life and death. No fear of death anymore. Living in the now. The toad medicine actually it's derived from one species of toad.
Okay, so what you're talking, just for the chat, because someone asked how do you spell it. So you've got toad DMT, which is DMT.
Bufo alvarius.
Did you say, hold on. So Brufo Alvarius.
Probably easier to chuck it in the chat.
Yeah. Bufo alvarius. It's only one species of toad in the whole world that secretes a certain poison from their glands when they're stressed. So what these natives do in Arizona and certain parts, Florida is so
My backyard is 5 toads.
Yeah. So what they do, and this is also in ancient medicine, is they take the poison that they secrete out of the glands, and they scrape it, put it on glass, let it dry, and then scrape it off the glass, and you smoke it. I know it sounds absolutely insane, but the properties of the experience is unlike anything other. It's been told that it is the apex psychedelic experience, even though it's not a visionary experience at all. Like,
thanks, Tim.
It's almost like your consciousness merges with the infinite creation of consciousness for 5 minutes. You come back to like, holy fuck, I've just been reborn again. And life is the biggest. It's the gift. It's a framework of non-duality, because life is, everything is duality. Everything is male, female, masculine, feminine, negative, positive. There's always this polarity. This is how the third dimension works, is of this polarity. Without one or the other, it doesn't complement each other, And when you merge the two together, that's where you get creation. But this is beyond that. It takes you into the space of non-duality, where you see even the most evil things, even the worst things in life are still part of God. What religions tend to do is say, okay, God is perfect and evil is not God. But the thing is, duality, the nature of duality, the wholeness of everything is still the one thing.
You're talking
Does that
like
make sense?
yin and yang. Without good, there can be no evil. Without evil, there can be no
Yeah,
good.
yeah, but
You need there needs to be cohesion in the two things. How could you know what good was if there was no
without
evil?
evil. Exactly.
Like, there would be no concept of what good is if there was no bad.
Exactly. And we wouldn't be human, or like nature wouldn't exist without one or the other. The polarities of nature. But this brought me into a space where I could see that negative and positive is still all God or source energy. Without one or the other. What we like to tend to do is say, God is positive and evil is not. Evil is not part of God, or evil is evil is the opposite of God. What it showed me was it's all God. Even the most negative things that we experience is still a part of nature. You cannot deny the darkness.
Mate, at the end of the day, if you're going to go off the whole concept of God created everything, God created evil.
Exactly.
Like if he is the one focal point for everything that exists in this world, then he had to create it.
Exactly. And I don't talk down on religion. I just see all religions as they have their truth, but we like to put things in boxes where it's like, oh, I need to reach for the light, and then they ignore the dark. But the dark, without understanding and going deep into the dark, then you won't really reach the light. And what your analogy of is digging your roots into the hell to say it is.
Yeah, it's an ancient saying. Your roots have to go through hell in order for your branches to reach.
Well, they all got to go underground, don't they?
I don't know if you've heard of this Hermetic principle, but as above, so below.
That's
as within, so without, and that for me is absolutely the true nature of reality. Is understanding, as above, so below, so within, so without. Or the microcosm to the macrocosm. It's like an infinite torus loop, or a torus field. Because everything, and now I'm getting into sort of, it's definitely science, but it definitely has like a spiritual element to it. Is everything extended science? New science is everything has a torus field. Everything is like this. Everything is feeding loops. That's just, when you
I know exactly. The torus loops have actually been found in ancient civilizations across Egypt, Africa, and they were all found in separate things in civilizations that had no concept of each other. If anyone that's watching here tonight actually has the opportunity to go out and watch a documentary, it's free on YouTube. It's called Thrive. They actually talk about.
That one's good.
I watched that 10 years ago.
Yeah, man, that's when I watched it. They talk about the torus loops and stuff like that. It's all very, very significant to everything that Jason is saying. If you have the chance to watch it.
Yeah. He really digs deep into that subject. Understanding that everything has a quantum field around it, even though you can't see it. It's there. We're in Western civilization is like, seeing is believing sort of thing. But I'm at that point where it's like you have to understand there's different densities that you cannot see. Like, for example, in the close range of visible sight, there's infrared, and then there's another density, and then so on, and then we can only capture so many spectrums of light.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes 100% sense, because when
Yeah.
you talk about they're going infrared and stuff like that, that's
Yeah.
that's not light. You're picking up
But
energy.
then when you bring entities or like spirits and stuff like that, and like even the poltergeists and all the ghosts and all that stuff, it's
The
like
orbs.
there is validity there. Like
Yeah.
there's something there that we're still trying to capture with science. And for me, what I believe in and what I've studied is there's certain frequency bands that certain spirits, ghosts, whatever you call it, and whatever entities, just certain other forms of intelligence beyond our third dimensional spectrum of visible uh, sight, if that makes sense.
No, it makes man.
No,
No,
so I'm into the densities, and like when you do certain, well, especially DMT or ayahuasca, you do encounter these entities or spirits or demons or aliens and shit. For me, what I can, and this is subjectively in my scientific notion and bring in logical sense, is when you dive into psychedelic realms, you're opening up different densities that you can experience. This is why when you smoke DMT, or people that smoke DMT claim that they experienced entities, and they're like, no, they were in a hyper intelligent. I was in a hyperbolic space-time continuum, and there were certain all-knowing entities that were there telling me about my purpose or the meaning of life, or just giving you information of infinite intelligence, which is for me, that is one of the most not important, but like
it's significant. It's significant.
In the DMT space. It's like there are certain entities that are going to help you, but there's also the opposite too, like because of the nature of duality.
Yeah.
You can really.
And they're there for a reason, just like every good trip and bad trip. They're there for the reason.
Man,
they're there for that lesson.
100%.
Yeah.
What were you about to say, Ari?
I was going to say, without kind of delving too deep into things, I completely agree that, you can, I guess, come into contact with different things. What I would just like to say as a personal recommendation is that I don't think it's the worst idea to even just in your head ask for protection from any negative beings, or to only come into contact with things that have your highest good and the highest good of all at heart, so that you're not just opening yourself up to anything and any experience, and then potentially having negative side effects.
But see, this is why creating the container is so important. Intention, having the right setting, creating a bubble in a positive bubble or a container when you go on these experiences. You can have very negative side effects. You can have entity attachments or even possession. Like, this is some real shit. Like, people have been possessed. I've seen it. I've seen possession in front of my eyes without the right guidance and the right calling, your guides or your angels or whatever you want to call it. But when you create a container, and this is why ceremony is so important, and intention, and also preparation. Even your diet before you go into these plant medicines is very important, because creating a container and being prepared is what creates less harm reduction. You can stop yourself up, because there's, with these different densities, you don't know what you're getting yourself into if you don't know what you're doing, with the right protection, with the right shaman, with the right setting and intention.
Like psychedelics are a hammer. I've been told that before. They're a hammer, or it can be a weapon or a tool based on intention and application.
100%.
Yeah, that's actually really good.
100%. Going back to what we were talking before, you guys came on. We were talking about the use of LSD in the
MMK, MK Ultra. And this is what I
like
to touch on.
Yeah, MK Ultra.
And this is where people have to be very, and like we're touching on all the sort of good stuff and the therapeutic uses, and this is what I was sort of going to touch on. I think I brought it up here somewhere. It's there.
Just real quick,
Yeah.
Foote because we're on such big time. We're at 2.5 hours. Maybe we should come again.
You know what? We're going to rate it in. We're going to rate it in, and we'll do a part 2. We're going to do a part 2.
Is have the next one directed at the questions people have in the chats, and we can have the next discussion maybe kind of addressing and discussing things people, our community, want to hear and discuss about. And Jack, also, you did an amazing job with your research, brother. And all your info.
So
let me know if you guys in the chat want, or any of you guys actually.
are you guys saying that you guys are willing to do a part 2? Because I know Tim. We already have Tim Foote, who's already said that he's keen for a part 2. And I would love for us to come with even more research next time. But
Our community, questions people want us to talk about, please, whenever you watch this, if there's anything that resonates, you want us to talk more about, anything that you really want to learn more about, this is a chance for us to talk together, and we're happy to do the research for the next one. I know I'm going to step my game up next time. Me too, for sure.
Yeah.
This is a great
Some amazing studies. So like literally, you can name it in the chat. Just name us, like think of anything that you think in a psychoactive, psychonarcotic sport. There is the study done on it already, or there's been studies done on it, or just intravenous studies done. So if
you want us to look at it for you and you can't be bothered reading it, send it to us and we'll do the research for you. We'll do it all for you.
We'll do it for you. It's
very
difficult.
Before we go, because we're hitting the 3 hour mark, and I'll go like, it's just going to be too much of a punish for people to watch. Before we go, page a book. That makes me. You've no idea what you've just written there has just made me so fucking happy. Like seriously. Like I will take that. Thank you so much.
Somebody share with us? Yeah, say it out loud.
It has this has Australian Joe Rogan energy. Big fan. I'll take it. I got the same haircut, so.
Gonna get into some taijutsu next, man. Gonna get some taijutsu next and some.
Oh no, we mate. You said you knew a doctor. We'll get a doctor on for the next one.
Yeah, I know a couple people. I reckon we could definitely get them on.
Do it. Ari. So before we go, so it's the last question, and we'll wrap it up. What is your sort of day, like not day to day, because obviously LSD is not something anyone should fucking do every day. Fuck.
Unless you go to the desert.
Don't do it every day.
Yeah, like how I guess your applications in the now to it.
So I really don't take it regularly now, but now, for the past few times when I have done it, I've used it to connect with other people, to basically enjoy an experience with them that's on a deeper level, to connect with myself, and also to use it for inspiration, whether it's for creative ideas. But yeah, I think the next time, I would go to take it, which I don't have any plans to anytime soon, it would probably be to check in with myself and to, use it as an introspective tool for music and creativity.
Oh,
looking inward always.
Perfect. This is what I'm talking about. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap it up there. We've hit the 3 hour mark, I'm sure.
Also, big love to you, brother. Big respect. Thank you so much.
Guys,
thank you for facilitating this.
Man, at the end of the day, it needs to be spoken about. The more we keep keeping it as a taboo subject of something that realistically isn't that, in my perspective, realistically isn't that bad. It sort of sits in there. It obviously can be used for bad. But under the right circumstances, with the right people, under the right guidance, it can be a very therapeutic thing, as we've all spoken about here. You know, like everyone here has had, including myself, has had applications or life experiences where psychedelics has had a big impact and a positive impact on their lives. Whether that be learning about yourself or like Ari has, you know, getting over addiction and stuff like that. Jack using it for his creativity and just, you know, like everyone in this chat here using it as a positive note. And not as a and the one big thing that I think crashed. The whole thing crashed. But we're back.
We broke the internet.
Fucking internet. All right. So you champions. Where are you? There you go. Okay. So for everyone that obviously had to leave, I'm really sorry. The chat, like the whole stream crashed. I just really want to give a big thank you to Ari, Jack, Jason, and Johan for jumping on. It's obviously a big thing to come out and talk about it. You know, what they sort of do in their spare time and stuff like that in the current climate. And, you know, like it's a big step forward in acceptance of psychedelics and the use of it and stuff like that. So it really shouldn't be shamed about. So if you have the opportunity to try and better yourself and it is available to you under the right circumstances with a licensed practitioner and stuff like that for now, go and do it, try it. You know, like it can't hurt. If you're hitting a roadblock where you can't go any further, give it a go.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah, I think
real
quick, I wanted Jack. Could you take off on what you were saying before we lost the stream because you had some?
Oh yeah, I was talking about, if I can cram it into a very short thing. We're in this very beautiful time. Going back to what we were saying at the start of the chat, just to bring it full circle, is that we're in this beautiful time where the governments around the world are starting to loosen their grips on these Schedule 1 drugs, and we're looking at them with new light, and we're going, okay, like what can this thing do? Can this beautiful substance do? And we've only just scratched the surface. We've only just started to scratch just a little bit off the top, just to go, okay, what is this? How does this work? How does this interact? In what way? And we've lost all this knowledge from our ancient past. And that means from all over the world. I'm not just talking here in Australia. I'm talking about every single continent and every ancient civilization where they used these substances to connect to God, better their lives, connect to the spirit realm, become a man, a woman, connect to their past ancestors, respect their ancestors, all that stuff. We have so little knowledge about what they did with that. And we are all, but now we're in that space and that psychedelic renaissance now where we have the money, we have the funding, the legislation's coming through, and we're going, okay, let's see what we can do with this. How can this help us? We've been here for so long, there has to be a reason. There has to be a reason. And there's these beautiful, beautiful minds and these smarter minds than I'll probably ever be in my lifetime who are going, hey, maybe there is something to this. Maybe there is something to this. Hey, can we have some funding? Hey, can we see if we can work out how these work and see what all the fuss is about? Yeah, I know we've got this big humor again. Oh, it's bad for you. But just have a little look and check it out, because it's going to be a very beautiful the next 10 years of study. The quicker we do it, the sooner we'll have all this lost knowledge, and it'll come through. Just like any knowledge, it's never really truly lost. It always comes back full circle. Just like science as well, it's all about the spiritual stuff as well. If it's ever lost, it always comes back in a different way, because it's just there always. It's a universal law, so it'll be there.
It's like the future has the past, and the future has roots in the past.
Everyone get excited, get very excited. Very amazing time to be alive. You guys all chose the best time to be alive.
Yeah, man. Big changes coming. Big changes coming with mental health, with medications as far as mental health goes, and I think it's a right step forward.
That's what's leading the charge. You just hit that right there. It's mental health. We're in a pandemic right now when it comes to mental health, collectively and individually. And I think that we would be unwise to look to our past ancestors who
didn't deal with it. They dealt with things a lot worse than we have. And they were a
100%.
lot more,
Hell
they were a
yeah.
lot more grounded and connected to the earth. And we've disconnected ourselves, which is okay because we're humans creating a world, as you know, it's a living, breathing world. Our society,
We're
civilization.
adapting, we're growing, and we've gone. Oh, we lost that bit. Oh, we've got to pick that bit up. Let's pick that bit up and bring it with us. Trust me, it's a really good book.
Yeah, and it's like Aris McKenna is incredible, and he was in the late '90s, early 2000s. He was the kind of person where like you put doctorates and philosophers in front of him, and he would run circles around explaining what they knew about Carl Jung and everything in psychology. And he was a huge proponent of mushrooms and psychedelic music. And one of his arguments he said is the new world needs to be, I will pay my dues, I will be a law abiding citizen. When it comes to my mind and turning off, please give me hands off. It should be my individual sovereign right as an individual. If I want to do this and I can still show up for my family, still be responsible, still pay my taxes, still pay my bills, still be a good citizen to the world. Why, you know? So just give gratitude to you guys for this space and for everyone listening and for all of us. Just opening the discussion because it's a new world being created right now, and the whole world is holding on in fear, and it's time for us to embrace love. And that's love for each other, and that starts with opening our mind to new things. And I'm grateful that all of us have this journey with psychedelics, each one of us. You, Jack, you, Mr. Beer Buddy, you absolute legend, and to Ari, and to all of us, because, you know, it's like that one person that goes in the darkness and comes back, you know, oh, it's not as scary. Maybe I can go a little bit dark.
Well, that's what the whole point of the discussion was about.
Anyone in the chat, just make sure if you want to chuck up any questions for the next chat,
Yeah,
definitely.
100%.
I feel we're going to do it 100%. Chuck up anything in the comments. We can read it later because we can put it on YouTube later. We'll grab in some more studies if you're interested. And if you want to do some homework, have a look at Terence McKenna. Just like Johan said, he's an amazing philanthropist in that field. So just check him out if you're new to the space and you're unsure. He's a really good first-hand experience. He's sadly not with us anymore, but absolutely beautiful mind, and will probably blow your own.
There you
And
go.
also, we're all here for you. So if you have a question for Jack, question for me, question for Ari, a question for Jason, all of us, our contact details are here. Please feel free to reach out. That's what we're here for.
Yep, 100%.
Or everyone's here.
And if you disagree with anything that we said, put up your info. We will attempt to rock your world and disagree with you wholeheartedly, because once again, this wasn't a balanced argument. We were all here for. We were very much for. Very much for.
100%.
Oh yeah, all right. Who's that? Recent interviews with Tim Ferriss. Ooh.
Tim Ferriss is amazing. He's the 4-hour work week.
Yeah, he's very.
There we go.
Into it. Trust me, it's actually they're doing it in Australia now as well. So everyone who's in Australia listening, it's happening.
Good stuff.
Monday, so good.
Just real quick, an interesting point on studies is a lot of studies haven't been done because it's, as we've said, it's classified in the U.S. as a Schedule 1. So it's a lot of stigma and controversy around government entities doing a lot of research and funding into it. So a lot of the research, Jack, you have and a lot of people have created as of late have been private funding.
Public funding, exactly.
No. Right now it's been private funding.
Well, you look at Ari's case. That's private funded.
Exactly. All private funded.
You know what I mean? You know what,
So
Tim Foote?
like you're saying, Jack, we're opening it up, and once the government's, created by the people, and I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I believe they're created by the people, and people are working in them. And, there's a lot of things happening in the world, and I firmly believe that we as people, we can request these things because they're better places and situations for all of us, individually and collectively. It's not a dangerous thing. If it's left in the darkness, it can be, but we're here in the light, and it's in the light because that's how we can.
Couldn't agree more, guys. Couldn't agree. We're going to go forward. We're going to keep talking about this, and we're going to break down the stigma. And Tim Foote, once again, has brought up another good point. Maybe next time we should just try and find some the good and the bad, and we'll try and balance it out a bit more and do a for and against. And
100%.
I'd love to get some people on. I actually have a couple of friends who would probably be a bit more on the other side, on the left side. So I think I could definitely.
yeah, let's do it.
Let's bring back like 5 questions from people we know that are against it but don't want to do it, just to get their insights. So
Yes.
Yeah.
We got to get
Friends
balance.
who are very,
Got to
very
get
religious.
balance.
I would love that. That's what we're here
I
for.
reckon you can definitely get them on.
You know, if you ever bring, if you ever bring religious people, I'll you know what? I'll tell you about this off stream. I'm gonna do my little goodbye. I'll put my disclaimer up, guys. Say goodbye. You guys have done such good work tonight. Seriously, you all are amazing. I love yous, everyone.
Love you, sir.
If you had a good night and you want to see more of this, hit me up. I can do other stuff. We can talk about heaps of stuff here. I can get more musicians. We can try to find other people. Remember, be safe. If you're going to do any of this stuff, make sure it's with a licensed practitioner and all that cool stuff.
Research.
Don't be silly. Don't take too much shit. Here's my disclaimer. Tim, everyone that watched tonight, you all are amazing. Thank you so much for contending with our chat, and I will speak to you all later on the next Beer Buddy stream. You all have a good night. I love yous. Take it easy.
See you guys.